There are no coincidences in a universe that is alive with intention. Every moment, every meeting, every pattern you notice is part of a greater conversation, one you've been a part of since the moment your soul chose to enter this world. But most people never stop to listen. They rush from one moment to the next, chasing noise, chasing plans, never realizing the subtle language of the universe is speaking to them constantly, in symbols, in feelings, in signs that repeat until they are understood. And when they are finally noticed, truly noticed, it feels like being seen by something greater, something loving, something wise, something you've always known deep down is there. The universe doesn't use words the way we do. Its messages are layered, multi-dimensional, whispers that echo through time and space, choosing just the right moment to reach you. Maybe it's a song on the radio with lyrics that mirror exactly how you're feeling. Maybe it's a stranger who says the exact words you needed to hear, even if they didn't realize what they were giving you. Maybe it's a book that falls off a shelf, a sudden chill in the air, a repeated number you see over and over again until you can't ignore it anymore. 1111, 22-2, 44, each number holding a vibration, a frequency, a pattern of meaning. We call this synchronicity. But it's more than just a beautiful idea. It's evidence that you are not separate from the fabric of reality, that your thoughts, your desires, your inner world are reflected in the outer world, constantly. You think something and a moment later it appears. You wonder about someone, and they call. You dream of a place, and then see it in an ad the next day. Some call this coincidence. But once it happens often enough, something deeper in you knows this isn't random. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, gave a name to it. He called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences with no causal link, yet deeply connected. He believed the psyche and the world outside are linked by a bridge that defies logic, that our inner archetypes and symbols shape our outer experience. And many ancient cultures believed the same, that spirit communicates through signs, that the divine does not shout, it whispers. And to hear it, you must become quiet, present, receptive. When you slow down and open your senses, the signs become clearer. You begin to notice the way a feather lands at your feet after a question has been asked. You feel the wind change suddenly when you make a decision from the heart. You overhear a conversation between strangers that answers something you were just thinking about. These are not tricks of the mind. They are invitations to begin listening more deeply. The truth is, the universe doesn't force itself on you. It will not interrupt your noise or fight for your attention. It waits patiently, kindly. It taps on your shoulder gently until you're ready to see. And once you do, once you open that inner door, a flood of wisdom begins to move into your life. You begin to live in a state of constant dialogue. You ask, and then you receive, not always in the way you expect, but in the way that serves your soul best. This is not superstition, it's spiritual awareness. It's realizing that you are not just a physical being walking through a dead mechanical universe. You are a spark of consciousness moving through a living or breathing field of intelligence, and that field listens when you speak. It responds to your vibration, not just your words. So when you feel lost or disconnected, when you're asking for a sign or just trying to figure out what to do next, pay attention to what shows up around you. The signs don't come because you begged for them. They come because you are aligned enough to see them. There's a difference. Sometimes the sign is in the delay. Sometimes it's the person who didn't show up. Sometimes it's in the strange feeling that says, not this path. We are taught to only trust what we can prove, but the spiritual path is about learning to trust what you feel, what you sense. Your inner knowing reveals to you without evidence. You are never alone in this journey. The universe is always around you, within you, speaking in the language of the soul. All you need to do is listen. The more you begin to pay attention, the more alive the world becomes. The line between inner and outer starts to blur. You notice how your thoughts begin to ripple into your environment, how your mood shifts the energy of a room, how the message finds you at the exact moment you need it. It becomes clear that this is not random. It's orchestration, it's design, and it's deeply personal. The signs that appear in your life aren't meant for anyone else. They're coded in the language your soul understands. A lyric that reminds you of someone you've lost. A childhood symbol that keeps appearing in your dreams. A sentence that feels like it was written just for you, even if a million others read it too. This is the universe saying, I see you. I haven't forgotten. You are still on the path, even when you feel lost. But to truly understand the conversation, you must learn to slow down, to stop filling the silence, because it's in the stillness that truth arrives. It's in the moments between distractions that clarity emerges. Sometimes the universe will send a message so clearly, so undeniably, that you feel it echo through your entire being. It hits like a vibration in your chest, like a bell being struck inside your heart. You know it isn't just a thought, it's a knowing. These moments don't need to be explained. They are felt. And once you've felt them, you can't go back to sleep. Because once you realize that the universe is alive and aware of you, everything changes. You stop forcing things. You begin to move with a sense of timing. You let go of needing to control every outcome. And instead you watch for the signs. You trust the flow. You follow the feeling of alignment. Sometimes though the messages are small, a soft inner nudge to turn left instead of right, a flicker of discomfort when you're around a certain person, a feeling that says, wait, not yet. These aren't coincidences. They're signals, tiny sparks from your higher self, from your guides, from the universe itself, helping you walk the path that's meant for you. And sometimes signs are loud. A job falls through, only for something better to appear days later. A relationship ends, making space for the version of you that's been waiting to emerge. Life shifts, rearranges itself in unexpected ways, and you realize this had to happen. Even the detours were part of the design. Even the heartbreak carried a message. Even the pain had purpose. This is what happens when you begin to see life spiritually. You no longer view events as isolated or meaningless. You see the patterns. You begin to trust the architecture of the unseen. If you ask the universe a question, it will answer, but it won't always answer in words. It might send you a person. It might guide you to a quote. It might use a dream, a memory, a sudden pull in your intuition. This is not imagination, it's communication. The soul speaks in symbols, and the more fluent you become in your own soul's language, the clearer the messages become. The most important part of all this isn't just receiving the signs, it's trusting them. Because doubt will always try to talk you out of magic. It will say you're reading too much into it, or that doesn't mean anything. But the truth is, if it moved you, if it stirred something inside you, if it brought clarity or a strange inner knowing, then it was meant for you. That doesn't mean you'll always understand right away. Some signs are seeds, planted in your awareness, waiting for the right moment to bloom. You may not realize their meaning until weeks, months, even years later. But when that moment comes, the recognition is instant, like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. There's a beautiful truth this. You don't have to figure everything out today. You just have to keep listening, keep watching, keep aligning your energy with trust, openness, and presence. Because the more you do, the more guidance flows in. It's not about perfect, it's about being available. There are times when you'll feel deeply connected, when every little thing feels like it has a message just for you. And there are times when the world will go quiet. The signs will slow, the nudges will fade, and you'll feel like you're walking alone again. But silence is also part of the conversation. It's not abandonment, it's incubation. It's space for you to integrate what you've learned, to grow in faith without needing constant reassurance. In the silence, your energy settles, your lessons root deeper, and when the signs return, as they always do, they feel even more profound. So don't rush the signs, don't chase them or demand answers on your timeline. Just keep aligning, keep centering yourself in stillness, and let the universe reveal its rhythm to you. You are not a passive observer in this life. You are a co-creator, and the universe delights in showing you just how connected everything really is. Watch for the moments that feel like déjà vu. Notice the words that seem to repeat in the conversations around you. Feel the goosebumps when a truth touches something ancient in your soul. These are not accidents. They are threads, and they are leading you somewhere beautiful. You came here with a purpose, not just a job or a title or a role to play, but a soul-level mission, something only you can express, something that has been whispering to you since you were a child, and the universe in its infinite wisdom has been guiding you toward it in quiet, gentle ways, through your curiosity, through your heartbreak, through your dreams and your detours. Every experience you've had, no matter how random it seemed, was a small light pointing you forward. And the more you awaken, the more those lights connect. You start to see the map forming. You begin to recognize how the dots were never random. They were placement, they were lessons, they were initiation. Sometimes signs come wrapped in discomfort. A situation that forces you to grow, a job that becomes unbearable until you finally say yes to something new, a relationship that mirrors everything you haven't yet healed. It may not feel like guidance at first, but the universe will shake the ground beneath your feet. If it knows you've forgotten how to fly, it will break the illusion so your truth can rise. This is not punishment, it's love, a deep, sacred, divine love that sees the whole of you, not just who you are now, but who you're becoming. And that love will not let you stay small. So yes, sometimes the signs will feel like storms, but if you look closely, you'll see the light in the chaos, grace in the unraveling, because only in the falling apart can new alignment be built. You may have been taught to doubt this, taught that logic is more trustworthy than intuition, that only what is seen and measured is real. But your soul remembers something older. It remembers the language of energy. It remembers how to feel truth in your bones, how to sense meaning before the mind catches up. That's why some signs hit you so deeply. They bypass your logic and speak directly to your knowing. Trusting signs isn't about becoming superstitious. It's about learning to walk in two worlds at once, the visible and the invisible, the seen and the felt. It's about honoring both your human experience and your spiritual awareness. You can still use discernment. You can still pause, reflect, question, but always ask, is this fear speaking or is it truth? Because fear will shut down the signs. It will cloud your perception and make you second guess everything. But truth feels clear, still, resonant, even if it doesn't make logical sense right away. The more you say yes to the sign, the more the universe will send. Not because it wasn't sending them before, but because now you're open. Now you're listening. Now you're aligned. And alignment is everything. When you're in alignment, the signs become constant. The timing becomes uncanny. You think of something and it appears. You feel drawn to go somewhere, and it leads to exactly what you needed. You say yes to something unfamiliar, and it unlocks a part of you that's waiting to rise. This is not magic in the way people think of magic. This is alignment with natural law, with energy, with a deep intelligence that holds this universe together. You don't need to know how it all works to trust it. You don't need a formula or a manual. You just need to be present, honest with yourself, and willing to move when the signs say move. Sometimes the universe says wait. Sometimes it says rest. Sometimes it's you inward, not to punish you but to prepare you. And the sign you're looking for won't come until your energy matches the next step. So if something feels blocked, it doesn't mean you're off path. It may mean you're being refined. It may mean you're not ready yet, but you will be. Think of the butterfly inside the cocoon. It can't be forced open early. If someone tries to help too soon, the wings won't develop strength. The process must unfold in its own time. The signs work like that too. You are being shaped, guided, held, and all around you, the universe continues to speak. In your dreams, in the wind, in the quiet knowing that rises in your chest. When something is right, let yourself return to wonder. Let yourself be awed by the mystery. You are not here by accident. Your life is not random. You're a thread in the great tapestry of creation. And that tapestry is always weaving itself in harmony with your soul. Every step you take, every thought you hold, every feeling you honor, it all matters. You are a participant in the sacred dance of energy and form. So the next time you feel a sign, don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it. Pause, feel into it, ask what it's trying to show you, and trust what comes. The universe doesn't speak English. It speaks energy, and energy never lies. There will be times when the signs feel so subtle, you'll wonder if you're just imagining them. You'll see a pattern forming, but part of you will question it. You'll hear something 3 times in one day and feel a strange tug, but your mind will try to explain it away. That's okay. This is part of learning to trust your inner guidance again. It's not about blind belief. It's about listening closely, paying attention to what speaks to your soul, not just your logic. We live in a world that prizes reason over resonance, that rewards certainty and shames mystery. But the soul doesn't operate by rules or blueprints. It speaks through feelings, through rhythm, through inner knowing that arrives without explanation. So if you feel it, it's real. If your heart lights up, if your body leans in, if something deep inside whispers yes before your mind catches up, that's your sign. That's your truth. Sometimes we wait for permission. We wait for someone else to confirm what we already know. We want a louder sign, a clearer one. But the universe often speaks quietly on purpose, not to test you, but to strengthen you, invite you into deeper trust. You are more intuitive than you realize. You've just been taught to doubt it. You've been trained to second-guess your inner voice, to override your instincts in favor of external approval. But all of that can be unlearned. You can return to your original guidance system, the one that's always been with you, the one that knows the way. And the beauty is, the more you follow it, the stronger it becomes. The more you say yes to the signs, more fluent you become in the language of the universe. You begin to live in flow, not because everything is easy, but because everything is aligned. You'll find that certain choices don't require pros and cons lists. They simply feel light, expansive, like truth is stretching its arms through you, inviting you forward. And other choices will feel heavy, constriction in your chest, a sinking in your gut, even if they look good on paper, even if they make sense logically. That's your sign too. Discomfort is a form of redirection. So much of life is about listening deeply, not just to what others say, but to what your body, your spirit, and the energy around you is trying to tell you. Every person, every place, every situation carries a frequency. When something matches your frequency, you'll feel it. When it doesn't, you'll feel that too. It's okay to walk away from what doesn't feel right, even if you can't explain why, even if others don't understand. Especially then, you are not here to make sense to everyone. You are here to follow what lights you up, to move toward what makes your soul breathe deeper, to trust the signs that are given to you, not them. As your awareness deepens, you'll start to notice synchronicities that feel too aligned to ignore. You'll think of someone and they'll message you. You'll have a question, and the answer will show up in a book you randomly pick up. You'll feel pulled to take a different route, and something unexpected will happen that changes your direction. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. Your inner world and outer world syncing up. This is the universe mirroring back your alignment. The more aware you become, the more you'll see that the universe is always trying to collaborate with you. Not control you, not force you, but co-create with you. You bring the intention. The universe brings the unfolding. And when your intention is clear, when your energy is aligned, when your actions reflect your truth, everything begins to respond. Not instantly, not always in the way you expect, but undeniably. Eventually, you'll learn to recognize divine timing, how something that didn't make sense a year ago suddenly falls into place, how a closed door turns out to be the greatest blessing, how the thing you were chasing loses its grip when something better finds you. You'll realize that life isn't something to control, something to dance with, to flow with, to trust. And in that trust, you'll find a peace that doesn't rely on certainty. You'll be able to move forward even when you don't see the whole path, because you'll know deep down that you're being guided. You'll feel held, you'll feel carried, not in a way that removes challenge, but in a way that reassures you through it. You're not alone. The signs whisper, "We're with you," the energy says. So take a breath, feel the space around you, feel the gentle support you've always had, but maybe forgot how to sense. It's still there. It's always been there, waiting for you to remember. There's something powerful about remembering, about realizing that the answers you've been searching for have always been within you, buried beneath the noise, softly glowing under layers of conditioning and expectation. You don't have to find path as much as you have to uncover it. You don't have to chase your truth. You just have to clear what's been covering it. And that clearing can be uncomfortable. Letting go of old beliefs, shedding identities that once felt safe, walking away from people or places that no longer match your frequency. It can feel like loss, but really, it's space. space for something more honest, more aligned, more you. The signs will often increase when you're on the edge of transformation. They'll show up like a trail of light when you're stepping into the unknown, because the universe knows how much courage it takes to choose differently, to trust what you feel even when you can't prove it yet, to believe that something better exists before it's visible. And so it supports you with winks, with moments of perfect timing, with synchronicities that remind you you're not crazy. You're remembering, you're realigning, you're tuning back into the natural frequency of your soul. It's easy to forget in a world built on distraction, easy to get caught in the noise of constant doing. But the soul doesn't respond to noise. It responds to stillness, to silence, to presence. That's why so many signs come when you slow down, when you step away from the rush, when you're walking in nature, sitting with your breath, or simply staring out the window with no agenda. That's when the whispers get louder. That's when the knowing arrives. We are not meant to force clarity. We are meant to allow it, to create the space for it, to invite it in with our openness. And when it comes, when the sign appears, when the feeling hits, when the message lands, you'll know. You won't need validation. You'll just feel it. It's like a chord being struck inside you, a resonance that vibrates through every cell. It feels like recognition, like coming home. And that feeling, that deep, anchored knowing is worth more than any outside approval, because it's yours. It's sacred. It's real. Not everyone will understand your sign, and they're not supposed to. They weren't sent to them. They were sent to you. So don't water them down to make them more acceptable. Don't shrink your truth just because someone else can't see it. This journey is between you and the universe, you and your higher self, you and the part of you that remembers the path. Even when you've forgotten, when you honor that connection, you become magnetic, not just to people or opportunities, but to clarity, to ease, to peace. You begin to walk through life with a quiet confidence, not because you have it all figured out, but because you trust that you're being guided, and that trust becomes your anchor, your light, your compass. You stop needing everything to be certain. You stop panicking when plans shift. You stop forcing timelines that aren't aligned, because you know now, everything unfolds in its perfect time. Even delays carry wisdom. Even detours carry gifts. The signs remind you of this. They remind you that life is not random, that you are being moved, not away from your purpose, but toward it. Every setback, every ending, every no, it's all part of the unfolding. And if you listen, if you really listen, the signs will show you what's next. It won't always be a full roadmap. It might just be the next step, but that's enough. The path reveals itself as you walk it. So ask yourself now, what signs have you been ignoring? What nudges have you felt but brushed aside? What patterns keep repeating, asking you to pay attention? The answers are far. They're right here, inside you, around you. The universe is not trying to trick you. It's not hiding anything from you. It wants you to remember. It wants you to trust. It wants you to step into who you really are. So breathe. Feel the energy beneath the surface. Feel how much you're being supported even when you can't see it. This is the journey. This is the unfolding. And the signs, they're always there. There's a rhythm to all of this, to how life speaks to you, to how energy moves before form takes shape. You may not always hear the beat, but it's there, like a quiet drum guiding your steps. You've felt it before in those moments, something just clicked. When the right opportunity landed out of nowhere, when a random conversation answered a question you hadn't even spoken aloud. That's not coincidence. That's rhythm. That's alignment. And the more you lean into it, the more you begin to trust it. You realize you don't have to chase so hard. You don't have to force what doesn't flow. You just have to be attuned. You have to be available. Available to the whispers. Available to the subtle shifts. Available to the invitations that don't always make sense right away, but feel alive in your body. The body knows, long before the mind catches up. The body speaks in sensations, tightness, lightness, chills, warmth, tension, release. Every feeling is a conversation. When you feel pulled to something for no logical reason, pause and listen. When something lights up your chest, your skin tingles, or your heart feels open, follow that. When you feel drowsed or uneasy around someone or something, trust that too. You are your own oracle. You are your own sacred guide. You don't need someone else to tell you what's right for you. You just need to get quiet enough to feel what's already true. It can take time to rebuild that connection, to trust your inner compass after years of being told to silence it. But it's never gone. It's just been waiting for you to return. And when you do, when you return to yourself, the world you begins to respond differently. The people you attract change. The situations you draw in become more aligned. You stop being available for what drains you, and you start moving toward what nourishes you. All of that begins with awareness, with presence, with learning to watch and feel the signs. You'll start noticing repeating numbers, 11, 444, 777, not just as random digits, but as moments of confirmation. You'll start noticing how certain words or symbols show up again and again, as if the universe is highlighting the message with yellow marker. You'll overhear a conversation that feels meant for you. You'll hear a song lyric that delivers the exact message you needed. You'll meet someone new, and it will feel like you've known them forever. These are not accidents. They are reminders, echoes from the soul, proof that something greater is at play. And you don't need to know how it all works to trust it. You don't need to understand the exact mechanics of synchronicity. You just need to feel it, to allow it, to stay open. Because the moment you close when you tell yourself that was probably just a fluke, you cut yourself off. You dim the channel. You send a signal to the universe that says, I'm not ready yet. But when you lean in, when you whisper back, I see that, when you say thank you, even if it's small, the connection deepens. It's a relationship, after all, a two-way conversation, you and the universe, dancing together. And in that dance, you start to remember who you are, not who you were told to be, not who you became to fit in, but who you've always been, underneath it all. A soul with a purpose, a frequency uniquely your own, a piece of the divine, in human form. You're not separate from the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself. And the sign, they're just mirrors, reflections of your vibration, echoes of your inner alignment. So when you shift your energy, your thoughts, your emotions, your focus, the signs shift too. They respond to the new frequency. That's why when you start doing the inner work, life begins to shift rapidly. It's not magic, it's magnetism. Your energy calls in experiences that match it. Your beliefs shape your perception. Your vibration influences what appears in your path. And when your vibration is clear, focused, and aligned, the signs become impossible to ignore. Because now you're tuned in, now you're awake, now you're participating consciously in the co-creation of your life. That's the power of awareness. That's the power of presence. That's the power of noticing the signs and saying, I hear you. You reclaim your power. You remind the universe, I'm listening now. And when you truly start listening, the path begins to open. Not because the universe suddenly started supporting you, but because you finally started listening to the support that was always there. And with that listening, you begin to tune into the deeper currents. The currents that are always flowing beneath the surface of your everyday life. They are subtle, yes, but they are the threads that connect all things. The same threads that connect you to the festering, infinite potential of the universe. The energy that moves through everything. It's the essence of creation itself. This is where the magic happens. Not in grand dramatic gestures, but in the quiet moments of awareness, in the pause before you respond to a situation, in the stillness between your thoughts, in the breath that connects your mind and body. When you slow down enough, you start to realize that this is where everything begins. Not in the hustle or the push, but in the surrender, in the willingness to listen without attachment to the outcome. And from that space of surrender, your next step becomes clear. It doesn't come from overthinking. It doesn't come from trying to figure out the next 10 steps ahead. It comes from the quiet confidence of knowing that the universe will show you what's next, exactly when you need to know. So many of us try to rush the process, thinking that if we just do enough, we'll reach the next milestone faster. But what if the real key is to stop rushing at all? What if the key is in learning to trust the timing of your journey, to trust that everything you need will be delivered to you at the perfect moment? And when you trust the timing, the signs become even clearer, because now you're not trying to force the universe into a box of your expectations. You're working with it, you're flowing with it, you're surrendering to the rhythm that's always been there. This rhythm is your natural state. It's the pulse of the universe beating through you. And when you align with it, life starts to flow effortlessly. The signs become not just confirmations, but invitations to step deeper into this flow. And in that flow, you experience a deeper sense of peace. It's the peace that comes not from external circumstances, but from the inner knowing that everything is unfolding as it should. That peace doesn't mean everything will always be easy, but it means that you're no longer fighting against the current. You're moving with it. It's the peace that comes from trusting that the universe has your back, that even in moments of uncertainty or discomfort, you are being guided, that you are never alone, you're always supported. So when you notice the signs, whether they are subtle or bold, take a moment to honor them. Recognize them as the universe reaching out to you, as your own higher self communicating with you. You don't need to understand everything right away, but you can always choose to trust that the answers are coming. And the more you trust, the more you align. The more you align, the more the signs begin to flood your awareness. You start to see the connections everywhere, and that's when the magic becomes real. Not because the universe is suddenly showing up in a new way, but because you are now seeing it in a new way. You are now open. You are now aware. You are now willing to receive the wisdom that has always been available to you. So let go of the need to force answers. Let go of the need to control the timing. Let go of the belief that you need to figure it all out on your own. And instead surrender to the signs. Every sign, every synchronicity, every moment of clarity is a gift from the universe. A reminder that you are not alone, that you are exactly where you need to be, that your journey is unfolding perfectly. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. The beauty of life is that it's a constant unfolding. The signs are there to guide you through it. They're the breadcrumbs that will lead you home. So stay present, stay open, and above all, trust. Trust in the process, trust in the signs, trust in yourself, and know that with each step you take, the path becomes clearer. With each sign you note, the way forward becomes more illuminated. You are on the right path, even if you don't see the entire picture yet. Trust that all will be revealed at the perfect time, and that in this moment, you are exactly where you need to be. So, when you find yourself standing at the edge of uncertainty, remember this: you are exactly where you need to be. There is no wrong turn, no mistake that can derail you. Everything is a part of the divine design. Every step, every misstep, every pause and every leap are all part of your soul's journey. It's easy to feel lost in the noise of the world, to feel like you're swimming upstream, fighting against the current. But the truth is, you're not alone in this, and the current is always flowing in your favor. You're not meant to control it. You're meant to learn how to move with it. The signs are there, whispering in the spaces between thoughts. They're in the pauses, the gaps, the quiet moments when you stop and breathe. They're in the synchronicities that show up when you least expect them. They're in the people you meet, the books you read, the dreams that flicker in the corners of your mind. These aren't coincidences. These are the moments when the universe is reaching out, gently nudging you forward. And all you have to do is be willing to listen, to pay attention, to trust that everything is unfolding in perfect timing. So, don't rush. Don't pressure yourself to have all the answers now. Trust the process. Trust that the next sign will come when you need it most. Trust that with every step you take, you are getting closer to your soul's true path. The signs are the breadcrumbs that lead you home. They are the whispers from your higher self, guiding you toward the life you are meant to live. And when you start paying attention to them, you begin to remember who you really are. You begin to remember that you are a part of something much bigger than yourself. You are an expression of the divine. You are the universe in motion, and the signs, they are your invitation to wake up to that truth. The moment you acknowledge that, the world begins to shift. Your perspective shifts, and the signs become even clearer, because you're no longer just waiting for them to appear. You're actively seeking them. You're open to receiving the guidance that's always been here. When you align with the flow, you start to see it everywhere. You start to realize that the universe has been speaking to you all along. It's in the gentle whispers of intuition. It's in the feeling of deep resonance when something truly clicks. It's in the moments of quiet stillness, when everything falls into place. And once you've started paying attention to the signs, you'll notice how everything in your life becomes reflection of your inner state, you'll start to see patterns in the people you meet, in the events that unfold, in the situations that arise in your path. These are not random. These are the ripples of your consciousness playing out in the physical world. You are creating your reality moment by moment. And when you step into the awareness that you are the creator of your experience, the signs become your guideposts. They are the roadmap to your soul's highest expression. The map is always in front of you. The signs are constantly showing you the way. And all you have to do is trust the path. Trust that every twist, turn, and detour is leading you exactly where you need to be. So as you continue this journey, pay attention to the signs. Listen to your inner wisdom. Trust the guidance that flows to you. And most importantly, be gentle with yourself. Trust that you're always exactly where you need to be. You are not lost. You are simply remembering, and the universe is with you every step of the way. And with that trust, you begin to let go of the need for control. You begin to surrender to the flow, and you start to feel the peace of knowing that you are always supported, that the signs will guide you home, and all you have to do is follow them. That the signs will guide you home, and all you have to do is follow them. You are already on your path, and the signs are just waiting for you to see them. So trust the process, trust the signs, and most importantly, trust yourself. As we move deeper into the teachings of ancient wisdom, we begin to realize that all knowledge, past, present, or future, has always been available to us. It's not locked away somewhere, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. It's woven into the very fabric of existence. It's been there all along, and with the right awareness, we can access it at any time. In the Vedic traditions, they speak of Brahman, the absolute, infinite consciousness that is the source of all creation. Everything in existence flows from Brahman, and yet it is not separate from anything. Brahman is the underlying unity of the universe, the ground of all being, where all distinctions fade, and all that exists is seen as one. Brahman is not a being in the way we typically understand it. It is beyond form, beyond time, and beyond space. It is the essence of existence itself. In its purest state, Brahman has no attributes, no qualities, no boundaries, and yet this infinite consciousness expresses itself through the universe, through you, through me, through every living thing, and through the stars in the sky. Brahman is the source of all life, and within it we are all interconnected. The problem is, many of us forget this truth. We get caught up in the illusion of separateness, of duality. We see ourselves as individuals, separate from everything else, and forget that we are one with all that is. The concept of Maya, in Vedic philosophy, helps explain this illusion. Maya is the veil of illusion that clouds our perception of reality. It is what causes us to perceive the world as separate from ourselves. Maya makes us believe that we are distinct, individual beings, rather than interconnected with the whole of existence. Maya is what makes us think that our thoughts, emotions, and experiences are ours alone. It tricks us into believing that we are isolated in this vast universe, when in reality we are part of an intricate web of existence. Maya makes us forget that we are Brahman, expressing itself through this form, this life, in this moment. But the veil of Maya can be lifted through self-awareness, through meditation, and through practices that allow us to transcend the ego and the illusion of separateness. As we begin to awaken, we start to remember that we are not just our bodies, not just our minds, not just our thoughts and experiences. We are the very essence of the universe itself. And when we remember this truth, the world changes. We begin to see through the illusion of duality and realize that everything is interconnected. We see that every action, every word, every thought has a ripple effect throughout the entire universe. We begin to understand that our lives are not isolated events, but part of a grand cosmic dance. A dance that is guided by the energy of the universe, flowing through us and through all things. When we tune into this rhythm, we align ourselves with the flow of the universe, and life begins to unfold with greater ease and grace. As we deepen our understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, we realize that everything has a purpose. Every person we meet, every experience we have, every challenge we face, it is all part of the divine plan. Nothing is by accident. Every moment is an opportunity to awaken, to grow, to evolve. And as we awaken to this truth, we begin to live more consciously. We become aware of the energy we are putting out into the world, and we understand that we are co-creators in the unfolding of our reality. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions, they shape the world around us. This is the power of the law of mentalism, the idea that everything in the universe begins as a thought and that our thoughts create the reality we experience. The law of mentalism teaches us that our minds are not just passive observers of the world, they are active participants in the creation of that world. When we understand this, we begin to take responsibility for our thoughts. We begin to realize that we are not victims of circumstance. We are creators of our reality, and that knowledge gives us the power to transform our lives. So much of our suffering comes from the belief that we are powerless, that we are at the mercy of the world around us. But when we awaken to the truth of our creative power, we start to see the world differently. We see that everything is malleable, that we can shape our experiences through the energy we put into the world. This is the beginning of true spiritual empowerment, realizing that we are not separate from the universe, but an integral part of it, realizing that we have the power to shape our destiny, to create the life we desire, and that power comes from aligning with the rhythm of the universe, from remembering our true nature as creators. As we begin to recognize our power as creators, we also begin to understand that this power is not separate from the universe. It is the universe itself. In truth, we are a reflection of the infinite intelligence that governs all of existence, the same force that guides the stars in the sky, and the flow of the oceans flows through us. This force is ever present, always available, and always guiding us toward our highest potential. In Taoism, this force is called the Tao, the underlying principle of the universe, the flow of energy that permeates everything. The Tao is both the source and the path, the beginning and the end. It is the eternal rhythm of the universe, the natural order that everything follows. And when we align with this rhythm, we experience a deep sense of peace and harmony. Taoism teaches us the importance of Wu Wei, the concept of effortless action. Wu Wei is not about forcing or striving. It's about moving with the flow, responding to life's challenges with grace and ease. It's about letting go of the need to control, and instead trusting in the natural unfolding of events. When we embrace Wu Wei, we stop swimming against the current of life. We stop resisting the flow, and instead learn to flow with it. We begin to trust that the universe is guiding us toward our highest good, and we allow ourselves to be carried along by its current. This doesn't mean that we become passive or inactive. Wu Wei doesn't imply that we sit back and do nothing. Rather, it means that we take inspired action, action that is aligned with the flow of the universe, action that comes from a place of inner peace, clarity, and trust. It's the difference between struggling to force something to happen and allowing it to unfold naturally. It's the difference between pushing and pulling versus simply allowing yourself to be carried by the current. When we align with the Tao, we tap into an energy that is beyond effort. An energy that works through us, guiding us toward the right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences. At the heart of Wu Wei is the realization that life is not something to be conquered or controlled. Life is to be experienced, enjoyed, and trusted. When we live in harmony with the Tao, we stop trying to force life to be a certain way. Instead, we learn to respond with grace to whatever life presents us. But living in this way requires a deep level of surrender. It requires us to trust that the universe is always working in our favor. It requires us to let go of our need for certainty and embrace the unknown. It requires us to stop trying to figure everything out and instead embrace the mystery of life. And as we surrender to this flow, we begin to feel the peace and joy that come from living in alignment with our true nature. We begin to understand that our thoughts, our emotions, and our experiences are not the source of our happiness. True happiness comes from surrendering to the flow of life, from allowing ourselves to be a vessel for the energy of the universe. In this state of surrender, we no longer feel the need to control every aspect of our lives. We stop holding on tightly to plans, expectations, and outcomes. Instead, we trust that whatever is meant to happen, will happen, and we allow ourselves to move with the flow, knowing that the universe always has our best interest at heart. It's in this surrender that we experience true freedom. Freedom from the burdens of expectation, from the weight of fear and doubt, from the need to be in control. When we trust the flow of life, we experience freedom in every moment. we experience the freedom to be ourselves, to live authentically, and to trust that everything we need is already on its way to us. And in this freedom, we begin to feel a deep sense of connection to everything around us. We feel connected to the people we meet, the places we go, and the experiences we have. We begin to see that we are not separate from the world, but an integral part of the grand tapestry of life. We begin to feel the unity of all things, the interconnectedness of all beings, and the divine presence that flows through everything. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's the realization that we are not just individuals, but expressions of the divine energy that flows through the universe. It's the understanding that everything is connected, that everything is part of a greater whole, and that we are never truly separate from anything or anyone. When we awaken to this truth, we see the world through new eyes. We see the beauty in every moment, the sacredness in every encounter, and the divinity in every experience. We see that life is not something to be feared or controlled, but something to be embraced and celebrated. And in this celebration of life, we begin to live more fully, more authentically, and more joyfully. We stop resisting and start flowing. We stop controlling and start trusting. We stop fearing and start embracing the infinite possibilities of the universe. This is the true essence of spiritual freedom. It's the freedom to be yourself, to live your truth, and to trust the flow of life. It's the freedom to know that you are always supported, always guided, and always connected to the divine. And it's the freedom to experience the joy, peace, and abundance that comes from living in harmony with the universe. As we move forward in understanding how to live in harmony with the Tao, we realize that this alignment isn't a destination, it's a continuous journey. Every day presents new opportunities to return to this natural state of flow, but the real beauty lies in the simplicity of it. It's not about striving for perfection. It's not about achieving some grand spiritual goal. It's about being present in each moment, accepting what is, and allowing life to unfold without resistance. To live in alignment with the Tao, we must practice mindfulness, being fully aware of what is happening right now. Mindfulness is the art of presence, of tuning into the here and now, without judgment. It's the ability to experience life without constantly thinking about what comes next, or analyzing what has already passed. It's about being aware of the flow of energy around us, without trying to change it or control it. When we embrace mindfulness, we tap into a deep state of peace. We stop fighting with the present moment and start living it fully. This peace isn't something we have to search for. It's always there, beneath the surface of our thoughts. When we let go of our attachment to the past and our worry about the future, we begin to experience the stillness of the present. And it's in this stillness that we begin to feel the presence of the Tao, the flow of life itself. The more we tune into this flow, the more we align ourselves with it, and the more we feel at ease in the world. But being in the flow doesn't mean we stop taking action or making choices. It simply means that our actions are inspired by the flow rather than driven by our ego or the desire to control. When we let go of the need to control the outcome, we find that we make better decisions, ones that are in harmony with our true nature. We begin to see that the universe is always guiding us and we just need to be willing to follow. This doesn't mean we stop having desires or dreams. It doesn't mean we let go of our ambition or our goals. It simply means that we approach those desires with a sense of detachment, knowing that we don't have to force them into existence. Instead, we trust that if it's meant to be, it will unfold naturally, in its own time. We focus on the process, not the outcome. And by doing so, we find that everything we desire comes to us with ease and grace. In Taoism, there is a concept known as Di Ching, a collection of teachings that offer deep wisdom about how to live in harmony with the Tao. One of the central teachings of the Tao Te Ching is the idea of non-action, acting without forcing or striving. This doesn't mean we don't act at all, but that our actions should come from a place of ease, rather than tension. When we act with non-action, we stop pushing against life's natural rhythms. Instead, we move with them, trusting that the universe will provide the perfect circumstances for us to succeed. Non-action is not about being passive or inactive. It's about responding to life's challenges with grace and presence, rather than reacting with fear or frustration. It's about seeing the flow of life and allowing ourselves to move with it, rather than trying to swim against it. When we embrace non-action, we start to feel the effortless flow of energy that moves through all things. And we realize that when we stop struggling, everything begins to come together in the most beautiful and unexpected ways. This is the wisdom of the Tao, the understanding that everything has its own time and place. We are not meant to force things to happen. We are meant to allow them to unfold naturally, trusting that the universe will guide us every step of the way. And when we align with the Tao, we begin to see the world as it truly is, a reflection of the divine, a manifestation of the infinite intelligence that permeates all things. The Tao teaches us that everything in life is in perfect balance. There is no need to push for more or resist what is. The universe is always in balance, and when we align ourselves with that balance, we find peace. We stop fighting against the natural flow of things, and we begin to experience life as a harmonious whole. In every situation, there is a balance to be found. Every challenge carries within it an opportunity for growth. Every setback is an invitation to realign and trust the process. And every moment is an invitation to surrender to the flow of life, to trust that everything is unfolding in its perfect time. Living in harmony with the Tao means living with a sense of peace and trust, knowing that everything we need is already here. It means letting go of our attachment to the outcome and embracing the journey. It means living with an open heart, trusting that the universe will take care of the rest. As we continue to walk this path, we begin to experience the profound peace that comes from aligning with the flow of life. We feel the energy of the universe flowing through us, guiding us and supporting us every step of the way. And in this flow we find not only peace, but joy, abundance, and freedom to be ourselves. This is the true power of spiritual alignment. As we continue on this journey of spiritual awakening, we come to realize that true peace and fulfillment come not from external achievements, but from within. The more we align with the flow of the Tao, the more we begin to experience the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing our true nature. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances. It is the result of realizing that we are already complete, already whole, just as we are. This realization is liberating. It frees us from the need to constantly strive for more, to prove ourselves, or to seek validation from the outside world. When we realize that we are already enough, we stop chasing after things to fill the void. Instead, we begin to live in a state of contentment, knowing that we are always connected to the source of all things. In Taoism, this sense of fulfillment is called Wu Wei, the natural flow of life that brings a sense of effortless contentment. It is the opposite of the stress and anxiety that comes from trying to control everything or force outcomes. Wu Wei is about allowing life to unfold in its own time, trusting that we are always exactly where we need to be. When we surrender to the flow, we experience a deep sense of peace and gratitude. We stop fighting against the present moment and start embracing it as it is, without judgment or resistance. We realize that every experience, every challenge, and every moment is a gift. And as we embrace this truth, we begin to feel a deep sense of connection to all that is. This is where true freedom lies, not in the pursuit of external goals, but in the acceptance of our true nature. We stop identifying with the ego, the small self that is constantly striving, chasing, and comparing itself to others. Instead, we identify with the greater self, the eternal soul that is already one with the universe. As we begin to live from this place of alignment, we find that we no longer need to seek validation or approval from others. We no longer need to prove ourselves or compete. We begin to see that our worth is inherent and that we are already connected to the infinite source of all creation. This understanding shifts the way we experience the world. We stop seeing ourselves as separate from others and start recognizing the oneness of all things. We realize that we are not just individuals moving through life alone. We are part of a vast interconnected web of existence, where every thought, every action, every word has an impact on the whole. This is the power of interconnectedness, the understanding that we are all connected, not just to each other, but to every living thing, every event, and every aspect of the universe. When we recognize our interconnectedness, we begin to feel the weight of our actions and choices. We see that the energy we put into the world has far-reaching effect, and we begin to make choices that align with the highest good for all. This shift in perspective is transformative. It's no longer about pursuing personal gain or individual success. It's about living in harmony with the universe, making choices that benefit not only ourselves but the collective whole. When we live with this understanding, we begin to experience a sense of purpose that transcends the individual self. In this space, we find that true fulfillment comes not from what we achieve, but from how we live. It comes from how we treat others, how we respond to life's challenges, and how we contribute to the greater good. True fulfillment comes from living in alignment with the greater purpose of the universe, knowing that every action we take is part of a larger, divine plan. As we continue to walk the path of spiritual awakening, we begin to see that the universe is constantly guiding us toward our highest good. Every moment is an opportunity to realign with the flow, to remember our true nature, and to act with love and compassion. When we live in alignment with the Tao, we experience life as an effortless journey, one that is full of peace, joy, and fulfillment. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we begin to see the magic in everyday moments. We begin to notice the small miracles that surround us, the way the wind moves through the trees, the sound of laughter, the warmth of the sun on our skin. We realize that these are the true treasures of life, the simple everyday moments that remind us of our connection to the universe. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, remembering who we truly are and living in alignment with the natural flow of life. It's about embracing the mystery of life, trusting in the process, and allowing ourselves to be guided by the wisdom of the universe. When we align with this flow, we experience life as a beautiful dance, one that is full of grace, ease, and limitless possibilities. And so, as we continue on this journey of awakening, we realize that the universe is always supporting us, always guiding us, and always leading us toward our highest good. All we need to do is trust the flow, surrender to the process, and live in alignment with our true nature. In doing so, we find peace, joy, and fulfillment in every moment. As we come to the close of this part of our journey, we realize that true spiritual awakening is not about reaching a specific destination. It's about the continuous process of surrender and alignment. Each moment is an opportunity to return to the flow, to remember our connection with the universe, and to embrace the peace that comes from trusting the process. And truth, there is no end point to spiritual awakening. It is an ongoing unfolding, a constant evolution of our understanding and experience. At times, we may feel that we are lost or disconnected. But even in these moments, the flow is always there, waiting for us to return to it. We are never truly lost, for the universe is always guiding us back to our center. Even in moments of confusion or struggle, we can trust that everything is unfolding as it should. The key to this trust is in surrendering the need to control. When we stop trying to manipulate life to fit our desires, we begin to experience a deep sense of peace. We stop trying to force things to happen and instead allow life to unfold naturally, trusting that the universe knows what is best for us. This surrender isn't about giving up, it's about letting go of the need to control the outcome. It's about recognizing that we are not separate from the universe, but an integral part of it. When we align with the universe, we find that everything we need comes to us effortlessly, in perfect timing. This is the beauty of spiritual awakening. It's the realization that we are always supported, always guided, and always connected to the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. When we live in this knowing, we experience the freedom to let go of fear and doubt, knowing that everything is always working out for our highest good. And as we continue to live in alignment with the Tao, we begin to see that our lives are filled with abundance, not just in material terms, but in spiritual and emotional wealth as well. Abundance flows into our lives when we trust the flow of the universe, when we stop holding on to fear or scarcity. The more we align with the natural rhythms of life, the more we experience the richness of the present moment. In Taoism, there is a concept known as the way of the sage, the one who lives in perfect harmony with the Tao. The sage is not someone who seeks to control or manipulate the world, but someone who moves through life with grace, wisdom, and compassion. The sage understands that the world is not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced and embraced. When we align with the way of the sage, we live in harmony with all that is, responding to life's challenges with wisdom and clarity. The more we live in alignment with the Tao, the more we begin to see that we are not separate from the world. We are one with it. We are not separate from nature, from the people around us, or from the universe itself. We are all expressions of the same awaken, all part of the same divine flow. This realization shifts our perspective on life. We begin to see the sacredness in everything, the divinity in every person, every moment. We begin to live with reverence for all of creation, recognizing that everything we encounter is part of the greater whole. And as we embrace this reverence, we find that we are filled with a sense of peace and gratitude for the gift of life itself. In the Taoist tradition, there is a concept known as the return to the source, the idea that we are always returning to the source of all things, the Tao. This is the ultimate goal of spiritual awakening, not to escape life, but to return to the essence of who we truly are. The return to the source is the return to our true nature, the realization that we are already whole and complete. It is the recognition that we are one with the universe, and that all is as it should be. When we live in alignment with this truth, we experience a sense of peace that transcends all external circumstances. We realize that we do not need to seek happiness or fulfillment, for they are already within us. We stop looking for external validation, and instead find our worth in our connection to the divine flow of the universe. As we conclude this journey of spiritual exploration, remember that the Tao is always with you. It is the flow of life, the underlying principle of the universe that guides you in every moment. When you align with the Tao, you align with your true nature, and in doing so, you unlock the peace, joy, and fulfillment that are your birthright. You don't have to force it, you just have to let go and trust the process. The universe is always guiding you, always supporting you, and always leading you back to the source. And when you live in harmony with the Tao, you live a life that is full of peace, purpose, and abundance. Trust the flow, embrace the journey, and know that everything you need is already on its way to you. You are one with the universe, and the universe is always in perfect alignment with you. As we continue to explore the profound teachings of Taoism, we begin to understand that the journey of alignment is not just about individual growth, it's about the growth of the collective as well. When we align ourselves with the Tao, we not only experience personal transformation, but we also contribute to the collective consciousness of the world. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, understanding that our individual actions ripple out into the world, affecting the greater whole. Each time we act in alignment with the Tao, we create a wave of positive energy that ripples through the universe, influencing others and the world around us. We begin to see that everything we do has an impact, no matter how small, and we start to take responsibility for the energy we put into the world. This awareness gives us a sense of purpose, knowing that every action we take is a chance to contribute to the greater good. But we do not act out of obligation or guilt. We act from a place of love, compassion, and alignment with our true nature. We do not force our actions. We allow them to arise naturally from within, inspired by the flow of the Tao. This is the true meaning of non-action, acting without force, allowing the universe to guide us every step of the way. When we live with this understanding, we begin to see how everything is interconnected, the way the actions of one person can have a profound effect on the lives of others. We see that our thoughts, words, and actions create the fabric of the world, and we begin to approach life with a deep sense of responsibility and reverence. We understand that we are not isolated beings, but integral parts of a greater whole, and that everything we do matters. This awareness leads us to live more consciously and intentionally. We become more mindful of how we interact with others, how we care for the earth, and how we respond to the challenges of life. We realize that every moment is an opportunity to make a positive impact, not just on ourselves but on the world around us. As we continue to deepen our connection with the Tao, we also begin to notice the synchronicities and signs that guide us along our path. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, communicates with us constantly, offering subtle hints and nudges to help us stay aligned with our true purpose. These signs may come in the form of unexpected encounters, ideas that pop into our mind, or feelings of inspiration that guide our decisions. When we are open to receiving these signs, we begin to see the magic in everyday life. We start to notice the connections between people, events, and experiences that seem to happen for a reason. This is the universe's way of showing us that we are on the right path, and that we are never truly alone on this journey. As we continue to embrace the flow of the Tao, we also learn to trust in the perfect timing of life. We realize that everything happens at the right moment, even if we don't always understand it at the time. Trusting in the timing of the universe allows us to release the need for control and to surrender to the process of life. This trust is essential for spiritual growth. Without trust, we cling to outcomes and resist the natural flow of life. But when we trust that everything is unfolding as it should, we experience a deep sense of peace and ease. We let go of our worries and anxieties, knowing that the universe is always working in our favor. When we embrace the concept of Wu Wei, we begin to experience life as a dance, an effortless flow that guides us from one moment to the next. We no longer feel the need to push or force anything. Instead, we move with the rhythms of the universe, allowing life to unfold in its own time, without interference. This is the true power of spiritual alignment, the ability to live in harmony with the flow of life and to trust in its inherent wisdom. As we live in this alignment, we begin to experience a deep sense of gratitude for the journey. We realize that every step, every challenge, and every lesson is part of the divine plan, helping us to grow and evolve. We start to see the beauty in every moment, even the difficult ones, knowing that they are opportunities for growth and transformation. In this space of gratitude, we also cultivate compassion for ourselves, for others, and for the world around us. We begin to understand that everyone is on their own unique journey and that all paths lead to the same source. We stop judging ourselves or others for where they are in their journey and instead offer love, understanding, and support. This compassion extends to all beings, human, animal, and even the earth itself. We begin to see that we are all connected and that the well-being of one affects the well-being of all. As we live with this understanding, we become more mindful of our actions, knowing that they have an impact on the world around us. We take responsibility for our part in the greater whole and work toward creating a world that reflects the beauty and harmony of the Tao. As we continue to deepen our connection to the Tao, we begin to notice that life is not just about individual growth, but about the collective evolution of consciousness. Each of us plays a unique and essential role in the unfolding of the universe, contributing our energy and our essence to the greater whole. When we align with the Tao, we understand that our actions are not isolated. They ripple outward, affecting others in ways we may never fully comprehend. We are all part of a grand cosmic tapestry, and every thought, every word, and every action we take sends out waves that shape the world around us. This understanding brings us a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of empowerment, knowing that the energy we contribute to the world matters. We begin to live more consciously, making decisions that are in harmony with the Tao, which in turn creates ripples of positivity and love in the world. In this way, spiritual awakening is not just about personal enlightenment, it is about contributing to the collective awakening of humanity. When we align with the Tao, we become conduits for the wisdom and love of the universe, and this energy flows through us, touching everyone we encounter. We realize that our spiritual journey is not just for our own benefit, it is part of a greater cosmic dance, where each step we take contributes to the harmonious evolution of all. This is the beauty of living in alignment with the Tao. The more we give, the more we receive. It's not a transactional process, but rather a continuous flow of energy, where giving and receiving become one and the same. When we give from a place of love and alignment, we are not depleting ourselves. We are channeling the abundance of the universe, and this flow revitalizes us. In Taoism, there is a concept known as the return to the source. It is the idea that all things are constantly returning to their origin, to the Tao, and that we are all part of this continuous cycle of creation and return. When we live in alignment with the Tao, we become aware of this cycle and understand that we are both individual expressions of the universe and integral parts of the collective whole. This realization helps us release any sense of separateness we may feel. We begin to see that the boundaries between ourselves and others are illusory, that we are all connected, and that the well-being of one affects the well-being of all. When we realize our interconnectedness, we naturally begin to act with compassion and kindness toward others, knowing that we are not separate from them. Living in alignment with the Tao also invites us to experience life with greater openness and acceptance. We begin to embrace the fullness of life, recognizing that every experience, whether joyful or challenging, is an opportunity for growth and transformation. We stop resisting the flow of life and start embracing it, trusting that every moment is part of our unfolding journey. In this space of acceptance, we also cultivate deep gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons we have learned, for the people who have crossed our paths, and for the experiences that have shaped us. We begin to see that every moment is a gift, and that life is always offering us opportunities to learn, grow, and evolve. As we live in gratitude, we also develop a deeper sense of humility. We understand that we are not in control of the greater flow of life, that the universe is constantly guiding us toward our highest good. We stop trying to force our will upon the world, and instead trust that the universe knows what is best for us, even when we don't fully understand it. This humility is not about diminishing ourselves, but about recognizing that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. It is about embracing the mystery of life and surrendering to the wisdom of the universe, knowing that we are always supported on our path. In Taoism, there is also the concept of wu wei, the idea of non-action or effortless action. It is the principle of allowing things to unfold naturally, without forcing or pushing. When we live in alignment with wu wei, we begin to experience life as an effortless flow where everything we need comes to us at the right time. We no longer feel the need to strive or struggle. Instead, we allow life to unfold in its own time, trusting that everything is happening for a reason. This doesn't mean that we become passive or disengaged from life. Rather, it means that we act with intention and clarity, without forcing or manipulating. We allow our actions to arise naturally from within, harmony with the flow of the universe, and trust that they will lead us to where we need to go. The principle of wu wei helps us release the need for control and allows us to experience life as a graceful dance, one where we move with the rhythms of the universe rather than against them. When we live in this flow, we experience a deep sense of peace and contentment, knowing that we are always exactly where we need to be. And as we continue to live in alignment with the Tao, we begin to experience life as a beautiful, effortless journey. We understand that everything we need is already within us and that we are always supported by the universe. When we surrender to this flow, we begin to experience a deep sense of fulfillment and joy that comes from living in harmony with our true nature. As we close this exploration of Taoism and its profound teachings, it's important to reflect on the central message of this philosophy. Life is not something to be controlled, but something to be experienced in its fullest depth and richness. When we align ourselves with the Tao, we stop fighting against the current of life, and instead begin to flow with it, trusting that the universe is always guiding us toward our highest good. This alignment is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's the realization that we are not separate from the universe, but a part of its vast, interconnected whole. In the process of spiritual awakening, we come to understand that we are always supported, always guided, and always loved by the universe. This support doesn't come from external circumstances, but from the inner knowing that we are always in harmony with the natural flow of life. When we trust this flow, we experience a deep sense of peace, knowing that everything is unfolding as it should. Living in alignment with the Tao means accepting both the light and the dark, understanding that all aspects of life are part of the greater whole. We learn to embrace the contradictions of life, recognizing that both joy and sorrow are necessary for our growth and evolution. When we stop resisting life's challenges and instead accept them as opportunities for growth, we begin to experience a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. This acceptance is not about passivity, it's about engaging with life from a place of balance and wisdom. It's about responding to life's challenges with clarity, compassion, and grace, rather than reacting out of fear or resistance. When we live with this understanding, we stop seeing obstacles as barriers and start seeing them as stepping stones on our path to spiritual growth. As we embrace the Tao, we also begin to see that the spiritual path is not about seeking a specific outcome, but about living in the present moment with awareness and intention. The goal of spiritual awakening is not to achieve a state of permanent bliss or perfection, but to live with a deep sense of peace, balance, and harmony in every moment. When we live in alignment with the Tao, we experience life as a continuous unfolding, where every moment is an opportunity for growth and transformation. In Taoism, there is no end point to spiritual awakening. There is only the journey, the constant process of returning to the source. This journey is not linear, it's cyclical, with each cycle bringing new opportunities for growth, learning, and self-discovery. We are constantly evolving, constantly learning, and constantly returning to the center, the Tao, the source of all life. This understanding helps us release the need for perfection and control. We begin to see that life is not about achieving a certain goal, but about living in harmony with the present moment, trusting that everything is unfolding perfectly in its own time. We realize that we are already whole and complete, and that our spiritual journey is simply the process of remembering this truth. When we live with this awareness, we experience life as an effortless flow, a flow that leads us to exactly where we need to be. We stop pushing against life, and instead we surrender to the flow, trusting that the universe is always guiding us in the right direction. In this state of surrender, we experience a deep sense of freedom and peace, knowing that we are always supported by the divine flow of the Tao. As we integrate these teachings into our lives, we begin to see the world with new eyes. We see the interconnectedness of all things and recognize that everything, from the smallest pebble to the largest mountain, is an expression of the same divine energy. We see the sacredness in all life, and as we live with this awareness, we treat every person, every animal, and every aspect of nature with love, reverence, and respect. This reverence for life leads us to live with greater compassion, kindness, and empathy. We begin to understand that all beings are on their own unique journeys, and that we are all connected through the same source of life. We stop judging others and instead offer love and support, knowing that we are all part of the same universal family. In the end, living in alignment with the Tao is about embracing the mystery of life. It's about letting go of the need to understand everything and instead surrendering to the wisdom of the universe. It's about living with trust, knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should, and that we are always in the right place at the right time. The Tao is not a concept to be grasped, it is an experience to be lived. It is the flow of life itself, the pulse of the universe that beats in all of us, guiding us toward peace, wisdom, and love. When we live in harmony with the Tao, we discover that the greatest gift of life is not something external, it is the inner peace, joy, and fulfillment that come from living in alignment with our true nature. As we continue to walk this path, let us remember that we are always supported by the Tao. Let us surrender to the flow, trusting that every step we take brings us closer to the source of all life, to the heart of the universe. And as we continue on this journey, may we live with love, compassion, and wisdom, knowing that we are always one with the divine flow of the Tao. The nature of reality, according to Chinese philosophy, is often described as an intricate dance of opposites, a dynamic balance that constantly shifts and adapts. Taoism teaches us that life is neither good nor bad, but a continuous interplay of forces that must be embraced and understood as a part of the whole. This concept of yin and yang is one of the cornerstones of Taoism, representing the duality inherent in all things, the light and the dark, the male and the female, the active and the passive. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that one side of this duality is preferable to the other, but Taoism invites us to recognize that these forces are not in opposition, but are two sides of the same coin. They cannot exist without each other, and together they form a harmonious whole that defines the nature of existence itself. Without the darkness, the light would have no contrast, and without the light, the darkness would be meaningless. This realization helps us to embrace the fullness of life, accepting both the pleasant and the challenging moments with equal grace. This interconnectedness extends beyond the dualities we often see in the world. Everything in Taoist thought is constantly shifting and evolving. The flow of energy that moves through the universe is never stagnant. Change is constant and inevitable, and by aligning ourselves with this natural flow, we open ourselves up to infinite possibilities. The Tao teaches that rather than resisting change, we should learn to flow with it, adapting to the ever-shifting currents of life. Like water, which can take on any shape and move through obstacles with ease, we are encouraged to be fluid and adaptable in our thoughts and actions. When we embrace this adaptability, we let go of the need to control every outcome, understanding that true power lies in our ability to adjust and grow with the flow of life. Another key concept within Chinese philosophy is the idea of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. This doesn't mean doing nothing. Instead, it refers to the art of acting in a way that is fully in harmony with the natural flow of the world around us. In Taoism, there is a deep recognition that life is not something we need to force or control. If we align with the flow, we can accomplish everything we need with minimal effort. This principle encourages us to act with clarity and purpose, but without overexertion or the need to push against the current of life. It's about engaging with the world in a way that feels effortless, as though we're in complete alignment with the natural rhythm of existence. This doesn't mean that we sit back passively and wait for things to happen. On the contrary, it's about stepping into the flow of life with awareness and intentionality, without forcing anything. Just as a river carves its path effortlessly, guided by the landscape, we too must allow our actions to unfold naturally, shaped by the circumstances and opportunities before us. When we resist this flow, we experience friction and struggle, but when we move with it, there is grace, ease, and a sense of purpose that emerges without effort. This is the true essence of Wu Wei, the ability to act without forcing, to do without striving, and to achieve without struggle. When we apply this principle to our own lives, it opens up new ways of thinking about action, effort, and success. Success is not necessarily about working harder or pushing ourselves to the limit, but about aligning our actions with the natural flow of the universe. In this way, we begin to achieve greater results with less effort, not by forcing things to happen, but by allowing them to unfold in their own time. This shift in perspective brings a deep sense of peace and balance, knowing that we do not need to overexert ourselves to achieve our goals. A further layer to this understanding of non-action is the recognition of the subtle energies that permeate all things. Taoist thought emphasizes that energy, or qi, is the fundamental force that drives all existence, from the smallest particle to the vast expanses of the cosmos. This energy is not something separate from us, but something that flows within and through us, connecting us to the natural world and to one another. Qi flows in cycles and rhythms, much like the seasons or the phases of the moon, and it's only by aligning ourselves with this energy that we can live in harmony with the Tao. When we resist or block the flow of qi, we create disharmony both within ourselves and in our relationship with the world. To live in harmony with qi is to recognize its presence in every moment of our lives, to feel its flow within our bodies, in our thoughts, and in the environment around us. This is why practices like Tai Chi, Qigong, and acupuncture are so deeply rooted in Taoist philosophy. They are designed to cultivate and direct the flow of qi within the body, helping to restore balance and remove blockages that might prevent us from living fully in alignment with the Tao. These practices encourage a deep awareness of the body's energy systems and help us develop the sensitivity to understand the subtle forces at work in our lives. When we become attuned to the flow of qi, we begin to understand the importance of balance and moderation. We no longer feel the need to push ourselves to extremes, but instead we seek a middle path, a path of harmony and balance that allows the natural flow of energy to guide us. In Taoist, this balance is often represented by the concept of the middle way, a path that avoids excess and deficiency, striving instead for a state of equilibrium where all things are in their proper place. The concept of the middle way is not about moderation in the traditional sense, but about living in harmony with the natural forces that surround us. It is the practice of tuning into the subtle rhythms of life, listening to what is needed in each moment and acting accordingly. This means understanding when to take action and when to step back, when to exert energy and when to allow things to unfold on their own. It is a path that requires mindfulness, patience, and an open heart, as we learn to navigate the complexities of life with wisdom and grace. In many ways, this middle way mirrors the Taoist understanding of balance. In the Taoist worldview, everything in existence has its counterpart, its opposite, and these forces are not enemies but partners. The yin and yang, for example, are not at war with each other, but are two halves of a greater whole, constantly interacting, supporting, and defining each other. In our life, we may experience moments of challenge and difficulty, but these moments are simply part of the greater dance of existence. Rather than resisting them, we learn to accept and work with them, trusting that they are part of a larger, unfolding process. The Taoist view of balance encourages us to stop trying to manipulate the world around us and instead learn how to listen to it. By observing the natural world and its cycles, we can begin to understand the ways in which the universe works and learn to align ourselves with its rhythms. This is a profound shift, moving from a mindset of control and manipulation to one of awareness and connection. In doing so, we begin to trust the flow of life, understanding that every moment is an opportunity to align with the Tao and to live with a sense of ease and peace. As we deepen our understanding of the Tao, we come to realize that everything in the universe is interconnected. There are no isolated events or separate experiences. Everything is a reflection of the greater whole, a part of the web of existence that stretches across time and space. This understanding challenges us to expand our consciousness and recognize the unity that exists behind the apparent diversity of the world around us. Every person, every plant, every animal, and every mountain is interconnected, all part of the same cosmic tapestry. When we understand this interconnectedness, we begin to see that our actions have a profound impact not only on ourselves but on the world as a whole. This realization calls us to act with greater responsibility, knowing that our choices ripple out into the world and affect others in ways we may not always see. We are encouraged to live with awareness, to recognize that every thought, word, and deed has the power to create harmony or disharmony in the world. In Taoism, this principle is closely related to the idea of right action, acting with integrity, compassion, and wisdom in all that we do. Right action is not about following a rigid set of rules, but about acting from a place of deep awareness, considering the effects of our actions on the world and all beings within it. By cultivating this awareness, we begin to live more consciously, making choices that are in harmony with the natural world and with the greater good of all. We begin to see that our true purpose is not to pursue selfish desires, but to live in service to the greater whole, helping to create a world of peace, love, and balance. This shift in perspective can be incredibly transformative as we move from a mindset of separateness to one of interconnectedness, where the well-being of others is as important as our own. One of the most powerful aspects of Taoism is its emphasis on simplicity. Taoism teaches us that the path to enlightenment is not complicated or difficult. Rather, it is a journey of returning to the simplicity of our true nature. In the pursuit of wisdom, we often accumulate knowledge, experiences, and possessions, but Taoism encourages us to let go of the unnecessary, to strip away the layers that conceal our authentic selves. The Taoist sage is one who lives simply, free from the distractions of modern life, attuned to the rhythms of nature, and content with what is. This simplicity extends to our thoughts and actions. We are invited to act with clarity and purpose, avoiding the complexity that often arises from overthinking or overanalyzing. By focusing on the essentials and letting go of the extraneous, we make space for the deeper wisdom and insight that arises from within. This simplicity also invites us to cultivate a sense of peace and contentment, to stop searching for happiness outside of ourselves and instead find it in the present moment. When we embrace this simplicity, we begin to see that life is not about accumulating more, whether it be material possessions, knowledge, or experiences, but about experiencing the fullness of life as it is, in its purest form. This shift in perspective allows us to live with greater ease and joy, free from the constant pressure to attain or achieve, and instead deeply connected to the present moment. In Taoism, this return to simplicity is seen as a return to the natural state of being, a state of ease, balance, and flow. In Taoist philosophy, the concept of Wu Wei is not just a principle of action, but also a way of being that permeates every aspect of life. It teaches us to move through the world without force, to act not from a place of struggle, but from a place of natural harmony. The key to Wu Wei is recognizing that much of our suffering comes from trying to control or resist the natural flow of life. When we let go of this need for control, we begin to feel the subtle power of the universe guiding us, moving us forward in a way that feels effortless. This concept can be deeply transformative, as it frees us from the anxiety that comes with constantly striving and struggling against the currents of life. The more we learn to embody this effortless action, the more we realize that the universe is not something we need to fight against, but something we need to align with. This alignment requires trust in the natural order of things, in the cycles of life, and in our place within the greater web of existence. The Tao teaches that every event, every person, and every situation is an opportunity for growth, even if it seems challenging or difficult in the moment. By releasing our need to control the outcome, we are able to accept each experience for what it is, trusting that it is guiding us toward greater wisdom and understanding. In this state of flow, we begin to realize that every moment has its own rhythm, its own natural unfolding. The Tao is present in everything, from the smallest breath to the grandest movement of the stars across the sky. By attuning ourselves to this flow, we begin to perceive the world in a new light, understanding that we are not separate from the universe but deeply embedded in it. This sense of connection is one of the most profound insights that Taoism offers, the realization that we are all part of a greater whole, connected by an invisible thread of energy that binds all things together. This understanding of unity can change the way we view our relationships with others. We come to see that we are all interconnected, and our actions affect one another in ways that are often unseen. When we live with this awareness, we naturally act with greater compassion, understanding that what we do to others we ultimately do to ourselves. This realization leads to a more harmonious existence, one in which we live in balance with the world and treat others with the respect and kindness they deserve. In Taoism, the practice of living in harmony with others is seen as an extension of the harmony we cultivate within ourselves. Living in this way requires a deep sense of humility, as we begin to recognize that we are not in control of the universe. We are participants in the dance of life, not the choreographers. This understanding frees us from the burden of trying to control every aspect of our existence, and instead allows us to live with a sense of ease and trust in the natural flow of life. The more we practice Wu Wei, the more we begin to feel a sense of inner peace and contentment, knowing that we are always in alignment with the universe, even when we cannot see the bigger picture. This sense of peace comes from the understanding that life is inherently neither good nor bad. It is simply what it is, and it unfolds according to the natural laws of the Tao. We can choose to fight against it, or we can choose to accept it and move with it, allowing it to guide us toward our highest good. The choice is always ours, but the wisdom of Taoism shows us that it is far easier to live in peace when we allow life to unfold naturally, without resistance. Through this perspective, Taoism invites us to live with more openness and flexibility, to remain adaptable to whatever life presents to us. Whether we are facing moments of joy or moments of difficulty, we are encouraged to stay grounded in the present moment, trusting that everything is unfolding perfectly. This trust allows us to move through life with greater ease and grace, embracing whatever comes our way with a sense of calm and acceptance. In Taoist thought, true wisdom comes not from knowing everything, but from being open to the flow of life, being receptive to the lessons that life offers, and responding with the clarity and wisdom that arises from within. This wisdom is not intellectual, it is intuitive, a deep understanding that comes from living in harmony with the Tao. It is the wisdom of the sage, who understands that everything is interconnected, and that by living with simplicity, balance, and humility, we are able to navigate the complexities of life with ease. The path of the Tao is not one of rigid rules or doctrines, but of lived experience. It is a journey of returning to our true nature, of stripping away the layers of conditioning that obscure our innate wisdom. This return to our authentic self is not something we achieve through force or striving, but through surrender and acceptance of what is. The Taoist sage understands that there is no need to chase after knowledge or enlightenment, for these qualities are already within us. What we seek is already here, within our own hearts. This realization brings a profound sense of peace, as we come to understand that there is nothing we need to do, nothing we need to become, except who we already are in this very moment. At the core of Taoism is the belief that life is inherently simple and that our struggles come from overcomplicating things. When we let go of the need to control or manipulate, we can embrace life's simplicity, seeing the beauty in the present moment, in the ordinary experiences that make up our daily lives. By stripping away the distractions of the mind, we come to realize that true happiness does not come from external circumstances, but from within. The Taoist sage is content with the simple joys of life, the sound of the wind in the trees, the warmth of the sun on their face, the taste of water, and the quiet moments of reflection. This contentment comes not from attachment to any particular outcome, but from a deep trust in the flow of life and the understanding that everything is unfolding as it should. To live in alignment with the Tao requires us to embrace the ebb and flow of life, to accept both the highs and the lows, knowing that each is a natural part of the cycle. The Taoist view of life is not one of resistance to pain or difficulty, but one of acceptance, understanding that challenges are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth and transformation. It is through adversity that we often gain our greatest insights, and by embracing the full spectrum of human experience, we are able to find peace and meaning in the midst of life's uncertainties. The Tao teaches that suffering is not something to be avoided, but something to be understood and integrated into our journey towards self-realization. Through this lens, we begin to see that life is not about accumulating wealth or success, but about finding meaning and purpose in our actions, in our relationships, and in our connection to the world around us. It is not about seeking external validation, but about aligning ourselves with the deepest truth of who we are and living from that place of authenticity. In Taoism, the pursuit of wisdom is not about acquiring more knowledge, but about cultivating a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. The more we come to know ourselves, the more we realize that we are not separate from the world around us, but a part of it, woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. This understanding of oneness invites us to approach life with greater compassion and humility. we come to recognize that all beings are connected and that our actions have a ripple effect that extends far beyond our immediate environment. When we live with this awareness, we naturally act with greater kindness and care, understanding that every thought, word, and deed has the power to create harmony or disharmony in the world. This deepens our sense of responsibility to others, as we recognize that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a greater whole, and that our well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of all beings. Living with compassion is not just about being kind to others, but also about being kind to ourselves. Taoism teaches that self-love and self-acceptance are essential for living a harmonious life. By embracing our imperfections and acknowledging our own struggles, we free ourselves from the burden of judgment and self-criticism. When we can love and accept ourselves as we are better able to love and accept others, recognizing that we are all on this journey of growth and transformation together. Self-compassion allows us to approach life with a sense of peace, knowing that we are worthy of love and acceptance, just as we are. Ultimately, the Tao teaches that the greatest wisdom lies not in accumulating more knowledge, but in surrendering to the flow of life, in trusting that we are exactly where we need to be. It is through this surrender that we find true freedom, the freedom to be ourselves, to live authentically, and to act in alignment with the deepest truth of our being. This freedom is not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom to act in harmony with the natural flow of the universe, to move with life rather than against it. In doing so, we unlock a sense of peace and fulfillment that transcends the fleeting pleasures of the material world, and find lasting happiness in the simplicity of being. One of the most profound teachings of Taoism is the idea of non-attachment, a principle that encourages us to release our grip on the things, people, and outcomes we cling to. In the Taoist view, attachment is a form of resistance, a struggle against the natural flow of life that leads to suffering. When we are attached to particular outcomes, we are unable to embrace the fluidity and impermanence of life, and we set ourselves up for disappointment when things do not unfold as we expect. Non-attachment does not mean that we stop caring about the things we love or value. It simply means that we do not tie our sense of worth or happiness to them. Through non-attachment, we learn to live with greater freedom, free from the constant need to control or possess. We can enjoy the relationships and experiences that life brings, but we no longer depend on them to define our happiness. This shift allows us to be more present, to appreciate life for what it is, without becoming overly attached to specific outcomes or circumstances. We begin to understand that everything in life is impermanent, and that true peace comes from accepting the ebb and flow of life with grace and understanding. The practice of non-attachment can be especially powerful in our relationships with others. We often form attachments to the people we love, seeking to control or possess them in some way, hoping to make them a source of our happiness. But Taoism teaches us that the key to healthy relationships is not attachment, but respect and freedom. When we truly love others, we do not try to possess them or make them dependent on us. We allow them to be themselves, free to grow and change as they need to. In doing so, we create a space of mutual respect where both people are able to flourish and evolve together, without the constraints of possessiveness or control. This idea of non-attachment also extends to our possessions and material wealth. In a world that often encourages the accumulation of goods and status, Taoism reminds us that true wealth is found not in what we own, but in our ability to live simply and with contentment. The more we let go of our attachment to material possessions, the freer we become, as we are no longer defined by the things we own. This freedom allows us to live with less worry, less stress, and a greater sense of peace, knowing that our happiness is not dependent on external things. Non-attachment also invites us to cultivate a sense of inner stillness, a quiet space within ourselves where we can connect with the deeper truths of life. When we are not constantly chasing after external validation or seeking to fill an inner void, we can turn inward and experience a profound sense of peace and clarity. This stillness is not about shutting out the world, but about creating space within ourselves to hear the quiet wisdom that arises from the depths of our being. In this stillness, we come to know who we truly are, beyond the roles we play, beyond our thoughts and emotions, beyond the surface-level concerns of daily life. As we deepen our practice of non-attachment, we begin to realize that everything in life is impermanent. People, possessions, and experiences all come and go, and the only constant is change. This understanding helps us to release our fear of loss, knowing that the true essence of life is not in holding on but in letting go. We learn to embrace the fleeting nature of life, knowing that it is this very impermanence that makes life so precious. Rather than clinging to the past or fearing the future, we are able to live fully in the present moment, appreciating the beauty and richness of life as it unfolds. Non-attachment also allows us to approach the world with greater flexibility, as we are no longer rigidly attached to our own plans and expectations. We begin to see that life is not a series of fixed events, but a flowing river of experiences that change and shift in unexpected ways. By releasing our attachment to specific outcomes, we are able to flow with life, adapting to whatever comes our way with greater ease and grace. In doing so, we become more resilient, able to navigate life's challenges with a sense of calm and equanimity, knowing that nothing is permanent and that every moment is an opportunity for growth. Through the practice of non-attachment, we come to understand that true freedom lies not in the things we possess, but in our ability to live in harmony with the flow of life. By letting go of our attachments, we are no longer bound by the constraints of the ego or the material world, and we are free to live from a place of deeper wisdom and inner peace. This freedom is not something that can be attained through external achievements, but something that arises naturally when we release our grip on the things we cling to and surrender to the natural unfolding of life. Another key concept in Taoism is the idea of naturalness, or Zaran, a term that refers to living in accordance with one's true nature, in harmony with the natural world and the Tao itself. To live naturally is to live without forcing or contriving, without pretending to be something we are not. It is about being authentic, expressing ourselves in a way that is true to who we are at our core, without the need for approval or validation from the outside world. This naturalness is not about being passive or complacent. It is about flowing with the natural rhythms of life, taking action when needed, but doing so from a place of ease, not from a place of struggle. When we live in this state of naturalness, we find that things begin to unfold with greater ease. We stop fighting against the current and instead move with it, allowing the universe to guide us in the direction that is most in alignment with our highest good. This does not mean that we avoid challenges or difficult moments. It simply means that we face them with a sense of acceptance, knowing that they are a natural part of the journey. Naturalness is about embracing whatever comes our way with grace, without resistance, and finding peace in the unfolding of life. Taoism teaches us that the key to happiness and fulfillment is not found in striving or pushing for more, but in letting go and allowing things to unfold naturally. The more we try to control our lives, the more we create friction and resistance. But when we relax into the flow of life, we find that things begin to fall into place in ways that we could never have anticipated. Living naturally means trusting the process, knowing that everything is happening for a reason, even if we cannot see the bigger picture in the moment. One of the most powerful aspects of living naturally is the way it allows us to experience the world around us with greater presence and awareness. When we let go of the constant need to control or manipulate, we open ourselves up to the richness of each moment. We become more attuned to the beauty of nature, to the sensations of our bodies, and to the subtleties of our thoughts and emotions. This heightened awareness allows us to fully appreciate life for what it is, rather than being constantly caught up in thoughts about the past or future. In this state of awareness, we begin to see that every moment is precious, that every experience, no matter how small, is a gift, and that true fulfillment comes from being fully present in each moment of our lives. To live naturally is also to embrace simplicity. Taoism teaches that the more we complicate our lives, the further we move away from our true nature. By simplifying our lives, our possessions, our routines, and our desires, we make room for clarity and peace to emerge. Simplicity is not about renouncing the world or rejecting material things. It is about recognizing happiness and fulfillment do not come from accumulating more things or achieving more success. True joy arises when we can let go of the clutter in our minds and in our lives and return to the simplicity of being, of experiencing life as it is, without the need for constant striving or distraction. When we simplify our lives, we also simplify our minds. We begin to recognize that much of our stress and anxiety comes from overthinking, from focusing on things that ultimately do not matter. In Taoism, the practice of stillness and mindfulness is a way of simplifying the mind, allowing us to quiet the constant chatter of thoughts and reconnect with the present moment. This stillness is a place of clarity, where we can hear the subtle wisdom of the Tao guiding us, and where we can reconnect with our true nature. In this state of clarity, we are better able to discern what is truly important and to live in a way that is aligned with our deepest values and desires. Through the practice of naturalness, we learn to let go of the need to impress others, to conform to societal expectations, and to chase after external markers of success. Instead, we begin to focus on what is most meaningful to us, on living a life that reflects our true self, and on finding contentment in the simplicity of being. This shift in perspective allows us to release the pressure of constantly trying to be someone we are not, and instead to step into the fullness of who we are, just as we are. In this way, living naturally is a form of liberation, a liberation from the constraints of the ego, from the fear of judgment, and from the need to chase after fleeting desires. Ultimately, the Taoist ideal of naturalness invites us to live with greater ease, with more peace, and with a deeper sense of authenticity. It is about being true to ourselves, living in alignment with our core values, and trusting that everything we need is already within us. When we live naturally, we move through life with a sense of ease and fluidity, no longer burdened by the weight of expectations or the need to control our circumstances. This way of living opens us to the beauty of life as it is, and helps us to experience a profound sense of peace, knowing that we are exactly where we need to be, moving in sync with the flow of the universe. This approach to action does not mean that we avoid challenges or difficult situations. Rather, it means that we face them with calmness and clarity, responding in a way that feels right in the moment without being driven by fear, anxiety, or the need to control. Wu Wei allows us to act in a way that is both effective and effortless. It is the art of doing without doing, of achieving results without forcing them, and of accomplishing tasks with a sense of grace and ease. When we are aligned with the flow of the Tao, we find that things tend to unfold in a way that feels natural and harmonious. We are not forcing outcomes or pushing against the current, but rather allowing life to guide us and moving with it. The concept of Wu Wei also speaks to the idea of being present in the moment. When we are truly present, we are not overthinking or planning ahead, but are simply responding to what is happening right here and now. In this state of presence, we act from a place of intuition, allowing our actions to emerge naturally from the situation at hand. There is no effort to make things happen. Rather, we simply allow them to unfold. This way of living is deeply freeing, as it releases us from the constant pressure to control or manipulate the world around us. Instead of striving, we learn to trust in the unfolding of life and respond to it grace. Wu Wei can also be understood as a practice of surrendering to the flow of life, and trusting that everything will unfold as it should. This does not mean that we give up or become passive in the face of challenges. Rather, it means that we release the need to struggle against life's circumstances and instead allow ourselves to move with them, finding the path of least resistance. In doing so, we find that we can navigate life's challenges with greater ease and find creative solutions to problems without forceful effort or struggle. In Taoism, Wu Wei is often associated with the natural world. Observing the way nature operates can teach us a great deal about how to live in harmony with the Tao. Nature does not struggle or strive, it simply is. The trees grow, the rivers flow, and the seasons change without effort or force. They follow the natural rhythm of life, responding to the conditions around them, but without resistance. By observing nature, we come to understand that the key to living a harmonious life is not in exerting control, but in yielding to the natural flow of existence, allowing things to unfold as they will. The practice of Wu Wei also involves letting go of attachment to specific outcomes. When we are fixated on achieving a particular result, we often exert unnecessary effort and create friction with the natural flow of life. But when we let go of our attachment to outcomes, we can act freely and without resistance. We are able to do what is needed in the moment, without becoming overly concerned with the end result. This freedom allows us to experience life more fully, without the constant pressure to achieve or attain. We act from a place of inner peace, knowing that the outcome is not in our control, but that the process of living in harmony with the Tao is what matters most. In our daily lives, we can practice Wu Wei by simply being more aware of our thoughts and actions, noticing when we are pushing or forcing things, and choosing to let go of that effort. We can choose to act from a place of stillness, allowing ourselves to be guided by our intuition and the natural flow of life. This practice of Wu Wei invites us to trust in the process of life, to surrender the need for control, and to move with grace and ease through each moment. When we live in this way, we experience a profound sense of freedom, knowing that we do not have to force anything, that everything is unfolding as it should, and that we are simply a part of the greater whole. Ultimately, Wu Wei is about living in alignment with the Tao, understanding that life is a process of constant change and flow. Rather than resisting or fighting against these changes, we learn to move with them, finding the path of least resistance, and responding to life's challenges with flexibility and grace. By embracing the principle of Wu Wei, we cultivate a life of ease, simplicity, and natural flow, where our actions are effortless, and our lives are aligned with the deeper wisdom of the Tao. The Taoist teachings on detachment offer a profound way of understanding how to live in harmony with the universe. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference or coldness, but in Taoism, it is about letting go of attachment to outcomes, expectations, and the need to control the world around us. When we are detached, we are not disinterested in life or the people around us. Instead, we are free from the emotional weight of clinging to particular results or desires. Detachment allows us to move through life with greater peace, knowing that we cannot control everything that happens, but that we can control how we respond to it. Taoism teaches us that attachment to things, whether material possessions, relationships, or even ideas, creates suffering. When we are attached to something, we fear losing it, and this fear leads to anxiety, stress, and a sense of dissatisfaction. Detachment is not about rejecting or abandoning the world, but about recognizing that everything is transient and impermanent. By letting go of our attachment to things, we are able to experience them more fully, without the constant fear of losing them. We can enjoy our relationships, our possessions, and our experiences without clinging to them, knowing that they are part of the natural flow of life. This understanding of detachment allows us to live more freely, without the weight of excessive desires or attachments holding us back. We can appreciate what we have in the present moment, without needing to possess or control it. Detachment is also related to the Taoist principle of non-attachment to self. In many ways, our attachment to our own identities and egoic desires can be one of the greatest sources of suffering. We become attached to the idea of who we think we are, to the roles we play, and to the labels we wear. But in Taoism, the ego is seen as an illusion, a temporary construct that we identify with, but that is not our true essence. By letting go of attachment to the ego, we can reconnect with our true nature, which is boundless, free, and one with the Tao. This detachment from the ego allows us to experience life without the constant filtering of our identity, without the need to protect or defend our sense of self. We can move through the world with more openness and flexibility, accepting ourselves and others as we are, without the need to constantly prove ourselves or seek validation. The practice of detachment is not about renouncing the world or withdrawing from life, but about freeing ourselves from the mental and emotional attachments that bind us. It is about finding peace in the present moment, knowing that whatever comes and goes is not the essence of who we are. In Taoism, this detachment is akin to the way water flows. Water does not cling to anything, it simply flows around obstacles, finding its way effortlessly. This is how we are invited to move through life, not clinging to the past or worrying about the future, but flowing with the natural rhythms of existence, responding with grace to whatever comes our way. When we practice detachment, we learn to let go of the need for control. The more we try to control the world around us, the more we create friction and resistance. But when we detach from the need to control, we allow life to unfold naturally, responding to circumstances with ease and wisdom. This is where true freedom lies. Freedom from the burden of expectations, from the need to possess, and from the constant striving for more. In this state of detachment, we can experience life with greater clarity and peace, knowing that the outcome is not in our hands, and that everything is happening as it should. We become less attached to the idea of success or failure, and more open to the simple experience of being present in the moment. Through detachment, we also come to understand that we are not separate from the world, but part of the greater flow of existence. Everything in the universe is interconnected, and by letting go of our attachment to the self, we open ourselves to the greater wisdom of the Tao, moving in harmony with the natural world. This detachment allows us to become more attuned to the subtle energies around us, to listen deeply to the rhythms of life, and to trust that the universe is always guiding us toward our highest good. Ultimately, detachment is about embracing the impermanence of life. We recognize that everything in life is constantly changing, and that nothing lasts forever. This understanding frees us from the need to hold on to things, and allows us to live with greater peace and acceptance, knowing that each moment is a precious gift, here and gone in an instant. Through the practice of detachment, we let go of the desire to control, to possess, or to cling to anything. Instead, we flow with the natural order of life, accepting whatever comes our way with grace, knowing that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. As we near the end of our exploration into Taoist philosophy, we arrive at the concept of harmony with nature, the idea that to live in alignment with the Tao is to live in harmony with the natural world around us. In Taoism, nature is not seen as something separate from us, but as a reflection of the Tao itself. The rhythms of nature, its seasons, cycles, and patterns, are considered the perfect expression of the natural order. When we align ourselves with these rhythms, we are said to be in harmony with the Tao. To live in harmony with nature is to understand that we are not isolated from the world, but an integral part of it. Just as a tree grows in the soil, responding to the sunlight, rain, and seasons, we too must learn to grow in the conditions of our lives, adapting to the changing circumstances and flowing with the natural energy around us. This harmony with nature is about living in balance, both within ourselves and with the environment. It is about recognizing the interconnectedness of all life, how every being, every plant, every animal, and every human is part of a vast web of existence. When we harm the environment, we are harming ourselves, because we are inseparable from the world around us. Living in harmony with nature means recognizing that everything is interconnected and that our actions have consequences that ripple through the world. By acting with respect and reverence for the natural world, we come into alignment with the Tao and experience greater peace and harmony in our own lives. One of the central aspects of harmony with nature is the idea of simplicity. In Taoism, simplicity is considered a virtue, a way of living that allows us to be free from the distractions and complications of modern life. To live simply is to return to a state of naturalness, where we are not overwhelmed by material desires, excessive attachments, or the constant need for more. Simplicity allows us to focus on what truly matters, our connection with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. It invites us to cultivate a life of peace, free from the noise and clutter of excessive consumerism, competition, and ambition. When we simplify our lives, we create space for the Tao to flow freely. We let go of the need to constantly strive or accumulate, and instead focus on living with intention and mindfulness, appreciating the beauty of the present moment. Another important aspect of living in harmony with nature is the practice of respecting the rhythms of life. Just as the seasons change and the natural world moves through cycles of growth, decay, and renewal, our lives also move through cycles. We go through periods of activity, rest, growth, and reflection, and each of these phases is essential to our well-being. In Taoism, it is said that we should not resist these cycles but instead honor them. We should allow ourselves to rest when needed, to grow when the time is right, and to reflect when we need clarity. By respecting the natural rhythms of our own lives, we create a deeper sense of balance and well-being. At the core of this understanding is the Taoist teaching of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. By aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life, we are able to act without struggle or force. Just as the river flows effortlessly over rocks, carving its path through the landscape, we too can move through life with ease, trusting in the natural flow of the universe to guide us. This effortless action is not about passivity or inaction, but about responding to life's challenges with grace and clarity, allowing us to act in the moment without the burden of excessive effort or worry. It is about flowing with life's circumstances, adapting as needed, and trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. When we live in harmony with nature, we also cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude. We begin to appreciate the simple everyday miracles, the rising sun, the changing seasons, the sound of the wind in the trees, and we come to understand that these are expressions of the Tao, a reminder of the vast, interconnected web of life. Gratitude shifts our perspective, helping us to see the beauty and abundance that exists in every moment. It allows us to move through life with a sense of reverence and awe, recognizing that we are part of something much greater than ourselves, a vast and wondrous universe that operates with perfect order and grace. Ultimately, living in harmony with nature is about finding our place within the world, and recognizing that we are not separate from it. We are part of the ebb and flow of existence, and by aligning ourselves with the rhythms of the natural world, we are able to live in balance and peace. When we connect with the natural world, we connect with the Tao itself, and in that connection, we find our true home, our true essence. This is the path of harmony, the path that leads us back to the source, where all is one, and all is in perfect balance. The universe is not what it seems on the surface. Beneath the appearances of solid objects, flowing time and individual identity, there lies something deeper, a shared understanding echoed across spiritual traditions and ancient philosophies from around the world. From the pyramids of Egypt to the mountaintops of India, from the riverbanks of China to the minds of modern mystics, a singular idea keeps returning, that reality is not simply material, but mental, energetic, and fluid in nature. What you see, hear, and touch is not the entirety of existence. It is but the outer layer of something much more profound. Consciousness is the foundation. The mind is not just a product of the world. It is the shaper of the world. The ancient Egyptians taught that everything begins in the realm of thought. The law of mentalism, recorded in Hermetic teachings, states that the all is mind. This is not it is a bold declaration that what we experience as the physical universe is ultimately formed, held, and sustained by an infinite intelligence, a cosmic awareness, a living mind that permeates everything. In the Vedic tradition, we find the concept of Brahman, an unchanging, boundless consciousness that underlies all reality. The material world, or Maya, is described as an illusion, not because it doesn't exist, but because it masks the deeper, unified truth of existence. What we take as real is a projection of the mind onto the screen of infinite awareness. Taoism carries this wisdom forward in a different form. It speaks not in formulas but in metaphors. The Tao is described as the flow behind all forms, the force that animates the world but cannot be named. It is not separate from the world, it is the world in motion. And the more we try to control or define it, the further we drift from it. These three traditions, though born in different cultures, are not contradictions. They are different angles on the same truth. Reality is not made of things, it is made of energy. Not made of objects, but of patterns. Not solid, but ever shifting. You may see a rock, a tree, or a building and think it is still, but that is only a trick of the senses. Underneath the appearance of stillness, everything is moving, vibrating, dance. Atoms swirl in constant motion. Energy pulses in and out of form. The structure of reality is more like a dream than a machine. Modern science has begun to catch up to what mystics have long known. Quantum physics tells us that particles behave differently depending on whether they're observed, that there is no absolute location until measured, that reality exists in potential until consciousness interacts with it. This aligns with what the ancients whispered through symbols and allegories, that consciousness is not trapped inside the body. It is the lens through which the universe expresses itself. Your awareness is not a side effect of matter. It is the very fabric that gives rise to experience. The Egyptians spoke of the Ka and Ba, spiritual aspects of the self that exist beyond the body and the waking world. In Vedic philosophy, the Atman, the inner soul, is not separate from the universal Brahman. The drop is the ocean. The individual mind is a temporary ripple on the surface of the vast sea of consciousness. And what of Taoism? It tells us that trying to grasp reality through thought alone is like trying to hold water in your hands. The Tao cannot be forced, it must be flowed with. Reality is not fixed, it is fluid. Identity is not solid, it is shifting. The more tightly we cling to certainty, the more we miss the subtle patterns dancing beneath the surface. So what does this mean for you, for your life, your choices, your dreams? It means you are not a passive observer in a pre-made world. You are a co-creator, a participant in the unfolding of the dream. Your thoughts are not idle, they are brushstrokes on the canvas of the real. Your emotions are not private, they send vibrations into the world that ripple outward, attracting experiences in alignment with your inner state. You are not just in the world is in you. This idea may feel radical, but it's not new, it's ancient, and it's echoed in all corners of deep spiritual thought. From the Egyptian priest mystics to the yogis of India and the sages of the Tao, the message is the same: change your mind and you change your world. When your inner state aligns with peace, you invite peace into your outer world. When you live in fear, you draw toward you things that affirm that fear. Your beliefs don't just shape your mood, They shape your perception, your choices, your energy, and ultimately your destiny. This is why the ancients put so much emphasis on purifying the mind, not to become morally perfect, but to become energetically aligned with truth. When your inner landscape is clear, the outer world responds accordingly. When your thoughts are tuned to abundance, beauty, harmony, and love, you begin to experience a life that mirrors those qualities. This is not magic, it is alignment, not superstition, but resonance. You are tuning your frequency to the deeper flow of the universe, and the universe echoes back. We're conditioned to think of life as happening to us, as a series of external events beyond our control. But these traditions offer a different lens, one that returns power to the individual, not as a separate force, but as an expression of something greater. You are the wave, and you are the ocean. You are the light, and you are the reflection. You are the observer, and you are the creation. When you truly realize this, the boundaries begin to blur. The separation between you and the world begins to dissolve. The journey of awakening is not about adding more knowledge, but about remembering something ancient and intuitive, something your soul already knows, that the nature of reality is fluid, responsive, and deeply intelligent, that consciousness is the root of all things, that love, presence, and truth are not ideals, they are the building blocks of existence. In silence, you often sense it, that quiet hum beneath the noise, the gentle awareness behind your thoughts. It's always been there. Before the distractions, before the labels, before the world told you who to be. That presence is not separate from the nature of reality, it is the reality. The ancients taught us that what we truly are cannot be described in words. Words divide, they label and limit, but the truth of existence is beyond division. It is unity, one, the unbroken whole in which all things arise and return. This is why so many spiritual traditions speak in paradox, to point you beyond the mind. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Brahman is neti neti, not this, not that. The Hermetic teachings say, the all is unknowable in its essence, yet knowable through its manifestations. What they're trying to say is, you can't find truth by grasping, you find it by surrendering. The more you try to mentally capture the nature of reality, the further you drift from it, because reality is not an object you observe, it is the experience you're already immersed in, and you, the experiencer, are not a bystander, you are the awareness through which life unfolds. When you begin to feel this directly, your life starts to change in subtle, profound ways. You become less reactive, less anxious, less attached to what people think, or what may happen tomorrow. You realize that behind every passing thought and sensation is a deeper, unmoving presence. That presence is not something you have, it's something you are. The Egyptians personified this presence as divine mind. The Vedic sages called it the self, the Atma. The Taoists spoke of it as the uncarved block, the raw, pure state of being before interference. All these point to the same timeless reality. Your core is not your body, your past, or your identity. It is awareness itself, silent, radiant, whole. And from this awareness the universe flows, like a dream, flowing from a dreamer. But this dreamer is not asleep. It is fully awake, fully alive, and it lives through you. You are one wave of its expression, one note in its eternal song. When you understand this, you begin to live differently, not because you follow a rule, but because you can't help but live in alignment. You begin to act with gentleness, you become more compassionate, not because someone told you to, but because you feel the interconnection of all life. You can no longer hurt another without hurting yourself. This understanding reshapes your perception of good and bad, success and failure. What if these are not fixed conditions but shifting perspectives, arising from the mind's judgment? What if the ups and downs of life are part of a larger harmony, like notes in a melody, each playing its part in the greater unfold? When the ancient Taoists observed nature, they didn't see chaos, they saw intelligence, cycles, seasons. Everything had its time, the bloom and the decay, the rise and the fall, and they realized human life is not exempt from this pattern. It is part of the same dance. So when pain arises or difficulty appears, they did not resist it the way we often do. They allowed it, they flowed with it, because to resist the flow is to fight the current, and the current knows where it's going. This is not about being passive, it's about trust. Trust in the intelligence of life. Trust that even what feels uncomfortable has a role to play in your growth, in your becoming. The universe is not punishing you, it is shaping you, and this this is echoed in the Egyptian principle of Ma'at, truth, order, harmony. In every moment, the soul was judged by its alignment with Ma'at. Was your heart light? Were your actions in balance with the greater good? This was not a system of fear-based obedience. It was a guide to living in tune with the cosmos. The heart was literally weighed against a feather in the hall of judgment, not to determine guilt but to assess harmony. A heavy heart burdened with regrets and imbalance could not rise to higher planes. A light heart, free and aligned, moved forward in peace. In the Vedic view, karma serves a similar purpose. It's not punishment or reward, but a reflection, a mirror that shows you the consequences of your energy. What you send out, you receive, not because a god is keeping score, but because reality responds to the vibration you carry. All of this points to one truth: the universe is intelligent, not intelligent in a human way, but deeply ordered, deeply responsive. There is no randomness in your life, only patterns you have not yet perceived. And when you begin to see them, everything starts to make sense. You realize that people don't just show up in your life. They are mirrors, teachers, reflections of your state of consciousness. Experiences don't just happen. They unfold in resonance with your beliefs, emotions, and expectations. And so if you want to change your reality, you must first change yourself. Not in a forced way, but by softening, by becoming aware, by releasing what no longer serves. The outside world is a delayed reflection of the inside world. When your inner world changes, the outer must follow. This understanding is both liberating and humbling. Liberating, because you are not trapped by circumstance. You are a creator. Humbling, because you begin to see the consequences of your thoughts, your energy, your actions, not from guilt but from awareness. The deeper you go into this, the more you begin to live with intention. You choose your words more carefully. You pay attention to your emotions. You observe your thoughts instead of blindly following them. You begin to act not from fear but from clarity, not from control but from trust. And gradually, the separation between you and the universe begins to dissolve. You no longer see yourself as an isolated self in a random world. You begin to feel the rhythm. You begin to sense the presence moving through all things. And in that presence, you find peace. Close your eyes for a moment and simply feel what's happening within you. Not the thoughts rushing by, but the space in which they move. That space is awareness, and it's not bound by time. It's not changed by age. It doesn't come and go. It remains quiet, still, open. That space is your true nature. Everything else is temporary. The body changes, moods shift, desires come and go, but the awareness beneath it all stays the same. You can't see it, but you can be it. You are it. This is the great truth the mystics spoke of again and again. The Egyptians honored it as the eternal spirit. The Vedas called it Sat-Chit, Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. The Taoists hinted at it through nature, through water, through stillness. Though their languages and cultures differed, they all knew this silent presence is the foundation of all things. When you begin to rest in that presence, even just for a moment, a shift begins. It may not be dramatic, it may not be loud, but it is real. You begin to move from resistance to acceptance, from control to flow, from grasping to allowing. You start to see that reality isn't something outside of you, fixed and solid. It is responsive, it listens, it reflects, and the more aligned you are within, the more harmony you experience without. This is why intention is so powerful. Not the kind of intention driven by ego or urgency, but pure intention, aligned with truth, guided by inner knowing. When you set an intention from a place of presence, it ripples through the fabric of the universe. It's like dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples extend far beyond what you can see, and though you may not always witness the effect immediately, it is reality is listening. The Egyptians knew this. They encoded their wisdom in symbols and rituals, not as superstition, but as a way to influence the unseen forces of the world. Each gesture, each word, each offering was done with purpose. Intention mattered, vibration mattered, because they understood that the unseen world gives birth to the seen. In Vedic teachings, the repetition of mantras serves the same purpose, not to beg for blessings, but to tune the mind to a particular frequency. A mantra is a tool for aligning consciousness with higher realities. It is not the sound alone, but the presence behind the sound that holds the power. And Taoism, with its quiet wisdom, teaches us to act without force. Wu Wei, effortless action, doing without doing. When your actions arise from inner alignment, they carry a different energy. They do not strain against the current, they move with it. And because of that, they are more powerful than any amount of struggle or control. This is how reality works, not through effort alone, but through energy, through resonance. When you align your energy with your intention and release attachment to outcome, the universe begins to move in your favor. Not always in the way you expect. Sometimes the path is winding, sometimes it challenges you, but always it is guiding you to deeper alignment, to your true self, to the remembrance of who you are beneath the noise. That remembrance is everything. Because when you remember your true nature, fear loses its grip. You stop chasing what you already are. You stop resisting what life is trying to teach you. You stop searching for validation from the world, because you realize you are already whole. This is not a concept, it is a lived experience, and it becomes clearer the more you tune in, the more you quiet the mind, open the heart, and allow yourself to be present. Even now, in this moment, you can feel a trace of it, a quiet sense of being. That's it, that's the doorway. You don't need to become anyone. You don't need to achieve spiritual perfection. You just need to see clearly, to return to what's always been here. Awareness, stillness. And from that stillness, life flows differently. People respond to you differently. Synchronicities begin to appear. Opportunities find you, because you are no longer acting from separation. You are in harmony with the field, and the field is intelligent. Every thought you think, every emotion you carry, sends a signal, not to some faraway power, but into the very field you live in, into the energy that surrounds and connects all things. That field is always listening, always reflecting, always offering you what matches your state. So the work is inner, not in the sense of effort, but in awareness, in noticing your patterns, in choosing peace when the mind wants chaos, in choosing love when fear arises, in choosing to pause and breathe when everything inside you wants to rush or react. These choices matter, they shape your timeline, they shift your reality, because the more you choose alignment, the more clearly you perceive the intelligence of life. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to ask, what is this showing me? That shift opens the door, from victimhood to empowerment, from confusion to clarity, from suffering to awakening. The outer world may not change overnight, but your relationship to it does, and that's what changes everything. The world is not as fixed as we've been told. It is not dead matter. It is alive, aware, and deeply connected to you. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. You are the dreamer and the dreamed, the actor and the stage, the light and the reflection. This is what the ancients tried to tell us, not to give us something new to believe, but to help us remember what we've always known, deep down, that this world is magic, that we are part of something vast and beautiful, and that the journey is not to escape it, but to wake up within it. Beneath the surface of every moment lies a stillness that cannot be disturbed. No matter the chaos outside, this quiet remains untouched. It's not something you have to earn. It's already here, but to experience it, you must pause, you must listen. Listen not with your ears, but with your being. Feel the space between your thoughts, the quiet presence beneath your breath. This is where truth lives, not in words, not in books, not in theories, but in silence. So much of what we've been taught about life comes from noise, from stories handed down, from fears passed on, from systems built on control. But silence holds a different kind of wisdom. It doesn't argue, it doesn't convince, it simply is. And in that silence you realize you've been whole all along. You just forgot. You got caught in the roles, the drama, the striving. But beneath it all, nothing about you has ever been broken. You were simply looking in the wrong place. This is why the mystics withdrew, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. They weren't running, they were returning to that space within where the divine whispers without words, where the eternal doesn't need a name. And once they found that space, they carried it back into the world, not as preachers, but as reminders, beings whose presence said more than their words. Because when you embody truth, you don't need to speak it, others feel it. That feeling is what awakens something in us. We recognize it because it's already inside us, the spark that never died, even through the pain, the confusion, the forgetting. Something in us knows, something in us remembers, and that remembrance changes how we live. We stop rushing, we stop competing, we begin to notice beauty again, in simple things, the way light moves through a window, the stillness of a tree, the rhythm of our breath. These are not just poetic moments, they are portals, gateways to the infinite in the ordinary. When your awareness rests in the present, the sacred reveals itself in everything, and suddenly the mundane becomes miraculous. The Taoists saw this clearly. They saw no difference between the spiritual and the natural. The Tao flowed through it all, the smallest stream, the tallest mountain, the laughter of a child, the cry of the wind. Everything was the Tao, expressing itself in infinite forms. And they knew, when you align with that flow, life becomes simple, not always easy, but clear. You act without strain, you move without resistance, you begin to trust the unfolding, even when it doesn't match your plan. This trust is not blind, it's not passive, it's born from deep observation, from seeing how life works, not just in your own story but in nature, in cycles, in energy. The same intelligence that turns seeds into forests breathes through you. How could it not know the way? The Egyptians expressed this intelligence through Ma'at, the cosmic order, everything in balance, everything in rhythm. Even death was not an end, it was part of the cycle, a return, a transition, not a punishment but a passage. To live in alignment with Ma'at was to live in tune with that rhythm, and the reward wasn't in the afterlife alone, it was here, now, in the quality of your presence, in the lightness of your heart, in the clarity of your actions. The same is true in Vedic teachings, Dharma, the path of right action, not based on rigid rules, but on inner knowing, on harmony between your soul and your steps. When you walk in Dharma, life supports you not because of effort, but because of alignment. Alignment doesn't mean perfection, it doesn't mean never stumbling, it means being real, being present, being aware enough to notice when you've strayed, and gentle enough to return without shame. The path is not straight, it spirals, it weaves, but it always brings you home. That home is not a place, it's a state of being, a present, a way of moving through the world, with open eyes and an open heart. It's the peace that comes when you stop pretending, when you stop running, when you let go of who you think you should be and allow who you are to emerge. This emergence is not loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet, like the dawn. It rises slowly, with grace, and when it comes, you no longer need validation, you no longer chase love, you become it, you no longer seek purpose, you live it, and in that way of living, the entire world changes, not because the outer shifts immediately, but because your perception does. You see the same things, but they mean something different. You hear the same words, but you respond with more presence, more softness. This softness is not weakness, it's the strength to stay open when the world hardens, the strength to be kind when it's easier to turn away, the strength to feel, to care, to love, fully, without guarantee, because that's what reality invites us into, not control but surrender, not fear but trust, not survival but expression. Life wants to live through you, not a version shaped by fear but the true one, shaped by presence. When you allow that version to rise, the universe responds, doors open, people appear, circumstances align, not because you forced it but because you're in resonance with the rhythm of life. You're no longer fighting the current, you've become the current. The mind likes to measure, compare, define. It wants certainty, edges, answers. But the deeper truth isn't always found in knowing. It's often found in unknowing, in the space where questions echo but no response comes. That space holds something sacred. To rest in unknowing is to trust that life doesn't need to be fully understood to be fully lived. You don't need a map if you are the path. You don't need proof if you are the presence. There's a quiet confidence that arises when you stop needing to figure it all out. Instead of grasping, you begin to allow. You allow yourself to not have it all together. You allow others to be as they are. You allow life to unfold without always pushing or planning. This is not resignation, it's alignment. It's a deep inner yes. That yes is what softens the grip of the ego. The ego says, I must control. Presence says, I trust. The ego says, I need to be seen. Awareness says, I am. One is rooted in fear, the other in freedom. The more you choose presence, the more peace arises. And that peace becomes your compass, not the kind that avoids pain, but the kind that brings clarity even in the middle of it. Peace doesn't mean nothing happens. It means nothing disturbs your foundation. You stop reacting and start responding. You move with intention, not impulse. This shift is subtle, but profound. In the beginning, it feels like you're doing less, but what's really happening is you're doing with more precision, more presence, more power. And because of that, what you do carries a different energy. It lands differently. It moves differently. The world begins to meet you at that level, not because you've become someone new, but because you've become more fully yourself. The masks drop, the tension fades. What's left is real, and the real doesn't need decoration. The Tao doesn't force the river to flow. It simply allows. In the same way, your highest expression doesn't come from effort. It comes from allowing the natural intelligence of life to move through you. You stop acting from conditioning and start acting from clarity. Conditioning is heavy. It's full of shoulds, of shame, of inherited fear. It tells you how to act, how to think, how to be loved, but it is not who you are. It's a costume, and it falls apart the moment you stop feeding it with belief. That moment is powerful. It doesn't require years of study or external permission, just a simple turning inward, a pause, a breath, a willingness to see clearly, and in that seeing, something softens, something breaks open. You realize that all the things you thought you had to become were just layers on top of something already perfect. The self beneath the story, the awareness beneath the thought. You've never been separate from it. It was just covered by noise. When the noise fades, even briefly, you begin to feel again, not just emotionally, but energetically. You feel the subtle currents of life, the silent pull of intuition, the presence in a stranger's eyes. You realize you're not alone. You never were. This connectedness doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the heart. The heart knows things the mind can't understand. It speaks in silence, in symbol, in the knowing that has no words. And when you trust that knowing, life becomes poetic. You start to see signs where before you saw coincidences. You sense timing instead of just clocks. You feel nudges instead of pushing. You begin to move with the rhythm of reality instead of against it. The Egyptians honored this rhythm through ritual, not to please the gods, but to align themselves with the sacred order. Ritual was a way to step out of time and into present, a way to remember the truth buried beneath the dust of the world. In Vedic tradition, the sacred was seen in everything: fire, water, breath. Nothing was ordinary. Everything was an entry point to the divine. The body was not an obstacle. It was a temple, a gateway to the formless through the form. Taoism echoes this reverence. It reminds us that nature is not separate from spirit. The wind has wisdom. The mountain has patience. The river teaches surrender. And when you listen, really listen, you hear more than sound. You hear life itself speaking. That kind of listening changes everything. It teaches you when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to be silent, when to lean in and when to let go. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop seeking approval. You start listening to the rhythm within. And in that rhythm, there is a harmony the world can't give you. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A joy that rises from simply being. You begin to live from the inside out. And that changes not just your life, but the lives you touch. Because when one person becomes present, it affects everything around them. Presence is contagious. Stillness is magnetic. Truth doesn't shout, but it draws people in. You become a mirror, reflecting what others have forgotten in themselves. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to preach. Just be fully here, fully real. That is more healing than any advice. That is more powerful than any strategy. Your presence is your gift, and it reaches further than you think. Even without saying a word, your energy speaks. It moves before you enter the room. It lingers after you leave. And when it's rooted in presence, in openness, in truth, people feel safer around you. Not because you give them answers, but because you give them space. Space to be who they are. Space to feel what they feel. Space to stop pretending. And in that space, healing happens. Not from effort, but from allowing. Not from force, but from permission. We're all just looking for a place to exhale. When you become that place, everything changes. You no longer need to convince. You no longer need to defend. You become the still point in a turning world. You walk through life like a calm breeze, gentle, yet deeply felt. This way of being doesn't require perfection. It asks only for sincerity. Can you be honest about where you are? Can you show up fully, even when it's uncomfortable? Can you choose awareness over avoidance, even if it's just for one breath? That breath is the doorway. Every time you return to it, you return to yourself. You step out of the story and into the moment. And in that moment, you find everything you thought you were searching for. Peace, clarity, connection. It was always here. We just forget again and again. And that's okay. Forgetting is part of the dance. What matters is the return, the gentle remembering, the willingness to come back without judgment, to make space for grace. This grace is not earned. It is not a reward for being good. It is your natural state, revealed when the noise subsides. It doesn't come from achieving, it comes from surrender. And in that surrender, a deeper strength rises. Not the strength of armor or resistance, but the strength of openness. The strength to remain soft in a hard world. The strength to stay curious when it would be easier to shut down. The strength to love when fear says it's too risky. That love is not a feeling. It is a presence, a frequency, a way of seeing. When you see through love, everything becomes sacred. Not because it changes, but because your perception does. You begin to notice the light in places you used to overlook. This is not a concept, it's an experience. It arises when you slow down, when you breathe deeply, when you drop beneath the mental chatter and feel the quiet hum of life beneath it all. That hum is love. It is not distant. It is not rare. It is you. You don't need to become more loving. You only need to become more yourself. The part of you untouched by fear, by doubt, by conditioning. The part that remains, even when everything else falls away. The awareness behind the eyes. When you touch that awareness, even for a moment, you know there is more to life than appearances. You know you are not your story. You know the sacred isn't somewhere far away, it's in your breath, your skin, your being. And that knowing softens you. It makes you slower to judge, quicker to forgive. You stop needing others to be perfect. You stop needing the world to match your expectation. You begin to see the divine in all of it. The mess, the magic, the mundane. This is what the sages saw. Not a world to escape, but a world to embrace. Not a life to control, but a life to surrender into. They didn't need to climb mountains or build temples. They became the temple. They became the mountain. Their presence was their teaching. Their stillness was their message. And we remember them not just for their words, but for how they made others feel. That's the kind of legacy presence leaves. It doesn't fade, it echoes. And you don't need to wait to embody it. You don't need to be a monk or a mystic. You just need to choose this breath, this moment, this step. You need only to listen, not to the noise, but to the stillness underneath. The world is loud, but beneath the noise, the truth waits. Not hidden, just overlooked. Not complicated, just quiet. And when you slow down enough to feel it, it changes you. It strips away what isn't real. It returns you to what is. That return is your path. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how far you've wandered. The way home is always the same. Silence, breath, awareness, again and again. Each time deeper, each time more whole. You're not trying to fix yourself. You're remembering you were never broken. You're not trying to find something outside. You're discovering what was always inside. And the more you return to it, the more natural it becomes. Until presence isn't something you practice, it's something you are. Until love isn't something you give, it's something you become. Until truth isn't something you search for, it's something that moves through you like a song with no end. Stillness becomes more than a break from the world. It becomes your anchor within it. You move through chaos without absorbing it. You hear noise without losing your center. You hold space without becoming drained. This is not escape, it's mastery. Mastery isn't about control, it's about coherence. When your inner world is aligned, the outer world begins to reflect that harmony. You no longer chase pace, you carry it. You no longer seek validation, you remember your worth. And in that remembering you become free. Free to choose from awareness, not habit. Free to respond instead of react. Free to release the stories that once defined you. You realize you are not here to be someone else. You are here to be fully yourself without apology. And the more you embody that truth, the more life begins to unfold with less resistance. It doesn't mean challenges disappear, but your relationship with them changes. You see them as initiations, not punishments, as portals, not problems. Each moment of discomfort becomes an invitation to go deeper, to see what wants to be healed, to feel what you once avoided, to meet yourself with compassion instead of criticism. And with each encounter, more light comes in. That light doesn't just heal you, it radiates. It reaches others, even without words. Your presence becomes medicine. Your silence becomes a blessing, not because you're trying to help, but because you've become whole. Wholeness is your natural state. It's not something to achieve. It's something to uncover, layer by layer, gently, lovingly, without rushing, without needing to be finished. The soul moves at the speed of trust, and trust isn't built through outcomes. It's built through intimacy. The intimacy of sitting with what is, the intimacy of not running, of listening deeply to the quiet places inside you, of being willing to feel, even when it hurts. This is what opens the heart, not bypassing the pain, but honoring it, not pretending everything is okay, but knowing you will be, even in the not okay. That's what real strength looks like. That's what awakening asks of us. To stop performing and start living, to stop hiding and start being, to take off the mask and remember the face beneath it, the one that doesn't need fixing, the one that was sacred all along. And when you live from that place, life simplifies. The noise begins to fall away. The desires that once drove you lose their urgency. You stop needing more because you realize you already have enough. You already are enough. Enough not because of what you do, but because of who you are beneath the doing, beneath the labels, beneath the history. You are not your past. You are the awareness witnessing it all. Timeless, spacious, free. That freedom brings clarity. You begin to see what truly matters. Connection over consumption, presence over productivity, love over fear. And in that clarity, you make different choices not out of obligation, but out of alignment. Aligned action flows. It doesn't exhaust. It energizes. It doesn't pull you away from yourself. It brings you deeper into who you are. This is the way of nature, the way of the Tao, the way of the awakened heart. Nature doesn't rush, yet everything gets done. It doesn't strive, yet it thrives. It doesn't worry, yet it weathers all seasons. There's a wisdom in that stillness, a rhythm in that surrender, and the more we align with it, the more life unfolds with grace. Grace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Grace that holds you when you forget, that whispers when the world is too loud, that shows up in the quiet moment, the deep breath, the unexpected kindness, always there, always enough. This is not about becoming spiritual. It's about remembering you already are, not just in practice, but in presence, not just in ritual, but in reality. Every moment is an altar, every breath is a prayer, every step is sacred. And when you live like that, not perfectly but intentionally, something shifts. You don't just change your life, you change the lives of those around you, not by force but by frequency, not by telling them how to live, but by showing them what's possible. You become the example, the embodiment, the living invitation, and you don't need to explain yourself. The energy speaks, the peace speaks, the love speaks, in silence, in presence, in being. The more you settle into this truth, the less effort is needed. You no longer push against life, you merge with it. You move with the current, not because you've given up, but because you've learned to trust the river. It knows the way, it always has. And that trust becomes your compass. You stop needing guarantees. You stop needing everything to make sense. You begin to live from faith, not blind belief, but deep knowing. A knowing that everything has a place, a time, a purpose. Even the struggles, even the losses, even the moments that shattered you. You see now that they weren't detours, they were doorways. They opened you in ways nothing else could. They carved space for a deeper love to enter. And maybe that's the point. Not to avoid pain, but to let it soften you, to let it make you more human, more whole, more real. The heart doesn't grow through comfort, it grows through contact, through life fully lived. So you stop holding back, you stop playing small, you stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin. You realize the moment is now, always now, and you choose to meet it, not with fear, but with openness, not with resistance, but with presence. That presence changes everything. It turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. It reveals beauty in places you once ignored. It brings a kind of reverence to your everyday life. Washing the dishes becomes meditation. Walking becomes prayer. You no longer need grand experiences to feel alive. You feel it in the smallest things, the sound of rain, the warmth of the sun, the way light moves through leaves. These moments are not distractions, they are the miracle itself, and the more you attune to them, the more grounded you become. Not heavy but rooted, not rigid but stable, like an old tree that has seen many seasons, bent by the wind, yet never broken. Its strength comes not from what it resists, but from what it accepts. You become like that tree. You stop needing to fight every storm. You stop fearing the winter. You understand that everything has its cycle, its rhythm, and that you are not separate from it. You are a part of the great unfolding. There's deep peace in that, a peace that doesn't depend on outcomes, a peace that remains even when the mind doubts, even when the heart aches. It's the peace of surrender, the kind that says, I don't know where this is going, but I trust the path. That trust is not weakness, it is courage. The courage to let go of the need to control. The courage to let yourself be seen. The courage to be soft in a world that praises hardness. That is the new strength. That is the new power. And it's contagious. People feel it. They may not understand it, but they recognize it. Because deep down, everyone is longing for the same thing. To come home. To belong. To remember what they are beyond the mask, the fear, the noise. And when you live from that place, you become a mirror. You reflect their light back to them, not by fixing, not by teaching, just by being present, being love. It's the most radical thing you can do, to embody love in a world built on fear, to move with kindness in a culture of competition, to speak with truth when silence would be easier. This is not passive, this is spiritual rebellion. And you are part of it by showing up, by choosing to feel, by refusing to numb yourself to life. You are reclaiming your soul. You are remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That remembrance is sacred. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't need to prove itself. It moves quietly, deeply, like roots growing beneath the surface. It nourishes you in places you forgot were hungry, and it begins to overflow into your relationships, into your work, into the way you listen, the way you touch, the way you live. People may not know what changed, but they'll feel it. Something in you will feel more true. And in a world starving for authenticity, that truth is medicine, that presence is healing, that stillness is revolutionary. Not because it shouts, but because it invites. It doesn't push, it welcomes. So let this be your practice. Not perfection, not performance, just presence. Just returning, again and again, to this breath, this body, this moment. Let everything else fall away. And what's left, what remains when the noise fades, is you, the real you, the eternal you, the light that cannot be dimmed, the love that cannot be lost, the truth that cannot be shaken. This is what you've always been, and now, more than ever, the world needs you to remember. Reality isn't as fixed as we once believed. It isn't made of solid objects separated by space and time. What we call the real world is more like a projection, a field of energy, a moving, flowing, ever-shifting dance of consciousness. And when we start to see this, not just intellectually, but with our whole being, everything changes. Ancient wisdom has been telling us this for thousands of years. The sages of Egypt, India, and China all pointed in the same direction. Despite their cultural differences, their message was unified at its core. What you perceive is not the truth. It is a filtered version of the truth, shaped by your mind, your senses, your beliefs. The Hermeticists spoke of this as the law of mentalism, that all is mind, that the universe itself is a mental construct, a projection from a vast cosmic intelligence. The Vedic sages called it Maya, illusion. The idea that the world we see is not the real world, but a veil that hides the deeper reality of Brahman, the eternal, unchanging essence. In Taoism, it was said that the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The moment we define reality, we are already distorting it. The real truth cannot be spoken. It can only be lived. It can only be experienced. So what is this deeper reality that hides behind appearances? What lies beyond the illusion? At the heart of all these teachings is one profound idea. Separation is an illusion. There is no you and me, no self and other, no subject and object. There is only one field of being, expressing itself through countless forms. The boundaries we see between our body and the world, between one person and another, are useful in a practical sense, but they are not ultimately real. They are like waves on the surface of the ocean, appearing to be separate, but always part of the same deep and undivided sea. In everyday life, we rarely see this. We are conditioned to perceive differences, to draw lines, to categorize and separate. Our minds are trained to look outward and label what we see, but the deeper we go inward, the more these boundaries begin to dissolve. Meditation, contemplation, inner silence, these are the keys. They strip away the noise, the programming, the constant chatter that keeps us trapped in the illusion. And as this noise fades, a deeper awareness arises, one that doesn't see through the lens of ego or identity, one that simply is. In that state, you begin to feel the unity behind all things. The tree outside your window, the sound of a passing car, the breath in your lungs, all of it is part of one unfolding moment, one present, one infinite being, playing every role, wearing every mask. The idea that we are separate from others, or from nature, is what causes so much suffering. It's what fuels competition, fear, and loneliness. But when we glimpse the truth, that we are all emanations of the same source, something softens, compassion arises naturally. We start to care not because we should, but because we feel the other as ourself. This is not metaphor, it's not philosophy, it's not poetry, it's direct experience. And once it's seen, it can't be unseen. But how do we reach this place? How do we go from seeing the world as fragmented and chaotic, to seeing the unity beneath it all? It begins with observation, not of the outside world, but of your inner world. Watch your thoughts, watch your emotions, watch how your mind labels, judges, reacts. Just notice, without getting involved. This simple act of observation begins to break the spell, because when you observe the mind, you realize you are not the mind, you are the awareness behind it, and that awareness is not separate from the awareness in others. It is the same field, looking through different eyes. The Vedas say, Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. You are not the wave, you are the ocean, not the drop, you are the rain. The ego may resist this idea. It clings to its identity, its preferences, its memories, but beneath the ego, deeper than thought, lies your true self. And this self is not a thing, it's not a person, it's not a soul with a name and a history. It's pure being, pure awareness, and it is one with everything. The Tao Te Ching says, he who knows others is wise, he who knows himself is enlightened, because in knowing yourself, not the surface self, but the formless essence beneath, you come to know the universe, you come to know reality itself. This knowing doesn't come from books or teachings, it arises in stillness, in silence, in surrender. When the mind is quiet, when the heart is open, the truth reveals itself, not as a belief, but as a direct, unmistakable experience. And once this happens, your relationship with life transforms. You no longer feel the need to control everything. You no longer live in resistance to what is. You begin to trust the flow, to move with the current, instead of against it. This is what the Taoists call wu wei, effortless action, doing without doing, living in harmony with the natural rhythm of the universe. That rhythm is always present, always flowing, but we can only hear it when we stop fighting it, when we listen instead of speak, when we surrender instead of strive. The Hermeticists, the Vedic seers and the Taoist sages were all pointing to this one truth, that what we call reality is not fixed, it's not separate, it's not outside of, it's a dream we're dreaming together, a play we're acting in together, a dance we're all part of, even if we've forgotten the steps. The moment you remember, even for an instant, that you are not just the dancer, but the dance itself, you are not because you've escaped the world, but because you've finally seen it, as it truly is. Everything you touch, everything you see, everything you think about, it's all made of the same thing. Not matter, not energy, but awareness. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. Our science has begun to catch whispers of it. Quantum physicists speak of the observer effect, how particles seem to behave differently depending on whether they're being watched, as if the universe is aware of being perceived, as if observation and manifestation are somehow linked. This idea isn't new, it's ancient. The sages knew long ago that consciousness is not something happening inside your head, it's the ground of all being. You aren't in the universe is in you. The Vedic texts spoke of this in terms of Brahman, the infinite, unmanifest reality that gives rise to all things, and Atman, the individual self that is, in truth, not different from Brahman. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, your consciousness is not separate from the totality. To experience this directly is to wake up from the dream of isolation, to feel the fabric of your being interwoven with everything that exists. You look at the stars and somehow you know they are not far away. They are inside you. You hear the wind moving through the trees and sense that it's not just air moving, it's presence playing with itself. The illusion is that things are out there, that people are over there, that life is happening to you when it's actually happening through you, as you. The teachings of Hermeticism echo this. The all is mind. What appears as physical is actually mental. The world is a thought in the mind of the all. And since the all is infinite, everything within it is connected, not by space, but by awareness itself. This awareness doesn't belong to anyone. It's not your awareness. It's not my awareness. It's simply awareness. Like the sky, vast, open, containing everything yet untouched by any of it. The thoughts, emotions, and sensations that arise are like clouds. They move through, but they don't define the sky. To realize this is liberation, not because you escape life, but because you see through it. You begin to notice how every experience, every moment, is arising in the field of your consciousness, and that field is the same field in which everything else arises. It's not just philosophy, it's not abstraction. You can feel it right now. If you stop chasing, stop resisting, stop clinging and just become still, you will notice a quiet aliveness underneath everything. That is what all the great teachings point to. This awareness doesn't have a shape. It doesn't have a sound. You can't see it or touch it, but you are it. Before you think, before you feel, before you perceive, there is simply being. Pure, undivided, silent awareness, and it has no beginning or end. When you truly realize that you are this awareness, you no longer fear death, because you see that what you are is not something that can die. Forms come and go, bodies are born and pass away, but what you are is formless, timeless, ever-present. This is what the sages meant by immortality, not the survival of the personality, but the realization that your true self was never born and can never die. Even modern spiritual teachers echo this ancient truth. When asked who he was, Ramana Maharshi would often say, "Find out who is asking, not to give an answer but to pull your attention inward, to the place where the question dissolves, where only being remains." There is no need to adopt a new belief system, no need to join a religion or memorize doctrines. Truth doesn't require belief, it only requires stillness, presence, honesty. In stillness, the illusion of separation fades. You begin to notice that the world you see outside is shaped by the world you hold within. Your beliefs, your fears, your expectations, all of it colors your perception. And so reality becomes a mirror, reflecting back to you the state of your inner world. This is the deeper meaning of as above, so below. The outer is a projection of the inner. Change the inside and the outside shifts with it. This is not magic, it's not superstition, it's alignment. When your mind, body, and spirit are in harmony, the world flows with you. Obstacles dissolves, synchronicities appear. Life stops being something to survive and starts being something to co-create. But this co-creation is not done through force. It's not about imposing your will on the universe. It's about resonating with it, attuning your inner frequency to the frequency of the deeper reality. This is what the Taoists meant by moving with the Tao. Not struggling, but flowing. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, they are not private. They ripple outward, shaping the field. Just like a stone dropped into a still pond, everything you are sends waves into the fabric of existence. This is why the ancient teachings placed so much emphasis on purification, not moral purity, but clarity, a clear heart, a calm mind, a focused awareness. These are the tools of transformation, because the clearer you become inside, the clearer the world becomes outside. The more love you feel within, the more love you see reflected in others, the more peace you cultivate, the more peace seems to surround you. You are not at the mercy of the world. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a participant in a living, conscious universe. And the moment you realize this, you begin to move differently, speak different, think differently. Every breath becomes sacred, every glance, every sound, every silence, part of the unfolding mystery. And within that mystery, you are not lost, you are home. You are the canvas and the painter, the dream and the dreamer. Reality is not fixed. It responds to you, reflects you, dances with you. This doesn't mean you control every event. Life still brings challenge, pain, uncertainty, but it means your relationship to those experiences changes. You stop seeing them as punishments or accidents. You begin to see them as messages, invitations, mirrors. A delay isn't just a delay. It may be alignment unfolding. A heartbreak isn't just a loss. It may be space being made for something more true. You start listening differently, with your whole being. You start trusting more. Because when you're no longer lost in the mind's chatter, something deeper comes forward. Intuition, a quiet knowing that doesn't argue or analyze but simply is. It guides you gently. Sometimes it leads you where the mind would never go. But when you follow it, things fall into place with a grace that logic could never orchestrate. This is how sages lived, tuned to the subtle currents of being, not in resistance but in communion, not trying to control life but allowing life to reveal itself, like a flower opening to the sun. The Taoists called this wu-wei effortless action, acting in harmony with the natural flow rather than against it. It doesn't mean doing nothing, it means doing only what is needed, at the right time, in the right way. And from that state, even great tasks can feel light, because the energy is aligned. Our culture worships effort. It teaches that only through struggle do we gain value. But the deeper path is not about effort, it's about awareness. When you act from awareness, your actions carry power, not force but presence. And presence is transformative. To walk into a room fully present is to shift the energy without saying a word. To meet someone with open awareness is to offer them a mirror in which they can remember their own truth. This is real service, not fixing others, but being so aligned in yourself that you awaken something in them. There is a kind of sacred responsibility that comes with this awareness, not as a burden, but as a gift. When you know that you are not separate, then every action matters, every word, every thought, because all of it shapes the web of being. This is why the ancients practiced mindfulness, not as a trendy habit, but as a way of living. To walk, eat, breathe, speak and love with awareness. To be fully where you are, because where you are is the doorway to the infinite. The present moment is not a stepping stone to something better, it is the destination itself. The more deeply you enter the now, the more you discover that everything you were seeking, peace, joy, truth, was always here, waiting behind the veil of distraction. This veil is thin. A single breath can pierce it. A moment of stillness can reveal the vastness that lies beneath the surface of ordinary experience. And once you glimpse that vastness, you can never truly forget it. You may get pulled back into the noise, but something in you knows the way home. And the more you return to it, the stronger that knowing becomes. Like a muscle, like a flame, you begin to live from that place. You begin to be that place. When you realize that you are the awareness behind the experience, you stop taking everything so personally. You stop grasping for identity in every emotion or thought. They come and go like weather, and you remain the sky they pass through. This doesn't make you cold or detached. On the contrary, it opens the heart, because when you're no longer protecting an illusion of self, you become available to life in a deeper way. You feel, you love more, but without clinging or fear. There's a gentle power in this, a quiet freedom. You can walk through storms with peace. You can sit in silence with fullness. You can meet others not from need but from presence. And that presence is the greatest gift you can offer. It doesn't matter what your past has been. It doesn't matter how chaotic your thoughts feel. At any moment you can return. You can pause, breathe, notice that you are here, that you are and in that noticing you wake up. Waking up isn't about some future achievement. It's not a mountaintop you climb to after years of meditation. It's a shift, a remembering, and it can happen now, in the middle of your ordinary day, in the middle of a sentence, a glance. And once you remember, your life becomes infused with meaning. Not the kind of meaning that comes from goals or accomplishments, but a deeper meaning, the kind that says, simply, I am here, I am alive, and that is when you live from that place, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to fix yourself or become someone else. You begin to trust the intelligence that made the stars, the oceans, the forests, and know that it also made you. And just as the tree doesn't rush to grow, just as the river doesn't force its flow, you begin to move with trust. Trust in the unfolding, trust in your own being, trust in the mystery. Because the truth is, you were never separate, you were never broken, you were never outside the flow. You just forgot, and now you remember. You remember not with your mind, but with your being. A quiet sense of recognition rises like the sun over still water, not loud, not dramatic, just undeniable. And in that recognition, the world seems to soften. Colors feel richer. Time slows down. Even the smallest details, a bird's call, a breeze against your skin, the glint of sunlight on a leaf, become radiant, almost holy. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You're no longer viewing life through the dense filter of mental noise and separation. You're seeing from the stillness within. This stillness is not emptiness, it's fullness beyond description. And from it, love arises. Not as emotion, but as a natural state of being. Not the love that clings, seeks, or demands, but the love that simply is. Silent, strong, unconditional. It doesn't come and go. It flows from the center of your awareness like a spring that never dries. When you're rooted in this, fear loses its grip. Even in moments of pain or challenge, there's a background of peace, like standing in the eye of a storm untouched by the spinning winds around you. And strangely, even the pain begins to feel sacred, because it's no longer something you're trying to escape. It's something you're willing to fully meet, to fully feel. And in that willingness, it transforms. It stops being suffering and becomes energy. It becomes part of your awakening. Every experience has the potential to bring you closer to truth. Even loss, confusion, or grief, especially those things, because they crack the shell of ego and expose the rawness beneath the openness where presence enters. And in that presence, healing happens. Not as a fixing, as a dissolving. The idea of a broken self dissolves into the radiance of what you've always been. You don't become something new. You simply remove the layers that were never you. Beliefs, patterns, roles, identities. They fall away like leaves in autumn. And what remains is silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of depth. A silence so alive it pulses with knowing. From here, wisdom flows. Not knowledge collected from books, but a direct understanding that rises from stillness. An inner voice, deeper than thought, that knows without needing to explain. This voice is not separate from the voice of the universe. They are one and the same. The guidance that arises from within is the same force that moves the stars. So when you follow it, you're not acting as an isolated self. You're participating in the greater harmony. You become a flute through which life plays its music. There's no need to struggle for purpose, because your very being is the purpose. To be what you are, fully, authentically, presently, that's enough. And from that, your actions naturally align with what is needed. You don't have to guess or force. You listen, you feel, you move with the rhythm. Sometimes it looks ordinary, doing the dishes, walking the dog, answering an email. But when done from presence, even the most mundane things become sacred acts. Because it's not what you do, it's where you're doing it from. And when done from presence, all action is meditation. All speech is prayer. All silence is communion. This is the essence of the awakened life, not a life free from problems, but a life free from illusion. You still feel, you still live fully, but without the weight of false identity. And that freedom ripples outward. Others feel it not because you preach, but because you embody. Your presence becomes a quiet invitation, a reminder that peace is possible. Now, you become a mirror in which others see their own light reflected. And through your stillness, the world remembers itself. It's not about withdrawing from life. It's about meeting life more fully, more openly, more honestly. Because when you're no longer seeking yourself in future outcomes or external validations, you become rooted in being. And from that root, all good things grow. Let this be your temple, not a place or a teaching, but a state of presence in which the sacred reveals itself everywhere. A single breath, a single step, a single glance of awareness is enough to return you to this place. And in that return, the universe smiles through your eyes. The journey into presence is not a path with a destination. It is a constant unfolding, a spiral that deepens rather than a straight line that ends. There is no final state to reach, no perfect version of yourself waiting at the end of the road. There is only this moment and the next, and your willingness to meet each with openness. When you stop striving for awakening as an achievement, you begin to notice that awakening is already here. It shows itself in the spaces between thoughts, in the stillness behind sound, in the gap before you react. The more you trust that stillness, the more you rest in it. Not by force, not by pushing thoughts away, but by simply noticing. Awareness itself is effortless. It doesn't strain to see. It just sees. It doesn't try to hold on to peace. It is peace. And the more you rest as awareness, the less entangled you become in the waves that rise and fall within it. Emotions, sensations, desires, they all still come and go. But you're no longer swept away. You watch with compassion, with presence, with a kind of gentle allowing. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you conscious. And from consciousness, right action flows. Not reactive, not rushed, just natural, rooted in wisdom, aligned with the moment. People often think spiritual awakening will make them feel bliss all the time. But that's not what it is. Bliss may come and go, like everything else. But awakening is deeper than bliss. It's the unshakable awareness that remains even when there is no bliss. It's the space in which sadness can be felt fully, without collapse. The presence that can sit in darkness without fear. The clarity that knows everything passes. And so you begin to live without grasping, without clinging to the highs or resisting the lows. You let life breathe through you, like wind through open branches. This openness is strength, not in the way the world defines it, but in the way truth does. It takes courage to be soft, to feel without running, to see without judging, to love without needing. And yet this is the way of those who walk the inner path. They move through the world like still lakes, reflective, deep, clear. They may not speak often, but when they do, the words carry weight. Not because they're clever, but because they come from silence. And silence has its own kind of language. It speaks through presence, through the way you hold space for another, through the calm in your breath, the steadiness in your eyes. This energy is not loud, but it is powerful. It doesn't demand attention, but it draws people in. Because deep down, everyone longs to return to that still place within themselves. And when they sense it in you, something in them begins to remember. Not through effort, but through resonance. Like a tuning fork setting another into motion. You don't need to preach or convince. You only need to be fully, truly here. That is your gift. That is your teaching. That is your presence. And from presence, a quiet joy arises. Not the sharp joy of excitement, but the gentle joy of being. A joy with no cause, no object. Just the simple truth that you are alive. Even when nothing is going your way. Even when everything seems uncertain. You can still touch that joy because it's not dependent on circumstances. It lives beneath them. It is the ground beneath your feet, the stillness in your chest, the breath in your lungs. And it's always here, always available, waiting for your return. So when life feels overwhelming, come back, not with force but with softness. Not to escape but to remember that beneath the story, beneath the struggle, beneath the roles you are awareness. And awareness is not afraid. Awareness does not rush. Awareness simply is. Let yourself rest in that. Not as a technique, not as a goal, but as a remembering. You don't need to understand it all. You only need to be still enough to feel it. Even for a moment, even in the middle of chaos, that one breath of stillness can change everything. Because from it you remember what matters. You remember who you are. And you remember that everything, every step, every challenge, every joy is guiding you home. Life doesn't unfold in a straight line. It moves in waves and spirals, through expansion and contraction. There are moments when everything feels clear, when presence is easy, natural, flowing. And then there are moments where the clouds return, where confusion rises again, where the old patterns tighten their grip. This too is part of the path. Nothing has gone wrong. Growth is not a constant upward climb. It's a dance between forgetting and remembering. Each time you forget and return, you deepen. Each fall is a chance to see more clearly. Each struggle reveals another layer that's ready to be seen, held, released. So don't judge the moments when presence feels far away. They are not failures. They are invitations. They are calls to come closer, not by fixing yourself, but by loving yourself exactly where you are. In those moments of resistance, of discomfort, of fog, you are being asked to meet yourself more honestly, to sit with the parts you've pushed away, to breathe into the pain instead of running from it. And in doing so, something begins to shift. You start to realize that you are not the pain. You are the awareness that holds the pain. You are not the fear. You are the spaciousness in which the fear appears. You are not the doubt. You are the light that shines even when doubt tries to hide it. This shift is subtle but profound. It changes the way you live, because when you stop identifying with every passing thought or emotion, you start living from a deeper truth, a quieter truth, one that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. You begin to notice that your value doesn't depend on how productive you are, or how successful or how spiritual you appear. Your value is never in question. It is not earned, it is inherent. It exists because you exist. And when you rest in that knowing, something in you softens. The need to prove, to strive, to seek approval begins to dissolve. Not because you don't care, but because you finally see that you were enough all along. From that place, your actions become cleaner. You create not to gain validation, but as an expression of love. You serve not to earn worth, but because your heart overflows. You speak your truth, not to be right, but to be real. And you listen, not just with your ears, but with your presence. This is the shift from egoic doing to soul-led being. It may look similar on the outside, but the energy behind it is completely different. And people feel it. They feel the difference between someone who is trying to get something from life and someone who is simply offering their presence to it. You become magnetic, not because of your image, but because of your authenticity. There's nothing more attractive than someone who is fully themselves, without apology, without masks. And that's what presence gives you, the courage to drop the masks, to stand in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, to stop editing yourself for the sake of fitting in, because you realize fitting in is not the same as belonging. Fitting in requires you to shapeshift, to shrink, to perform, but belonging only happens when you show up as you come, unfiltered, unpolished, real. And strangely, the more real you are, the more others feel safe to be real too. Your presence becomes permission, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. That's the quiet power of presence. It's not about being perfect or enlightened. It's about being here, fully, honestly, lovingly. It's about being the one in the room who is not lost thought, the one who is actually listening, actually feeling, actually being. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to have all the answers. Just your being. Your stillness is enough. The world is starving for realness, for depth, for presence, and you carry that within you, not as something to achieve, but as something to remember. So let go of the need to constantly be improving yourself. Let go of the story that says you're not there yet. Let go of the chase, and simply be right here, right now, just as you are. That is enough. That is the doorway. That is the way home. There comes a moment when even the spiritual search begins to dissolve, not out of frustration, but out of understanding. You realize that what you were searching for was never lost. It has always been here, quiet, patient, waiting for you to slow down long enough to notice. The mind tries to make awakening a project, another thing to accomplish, another badge to earn. But presence isn't earned, it's remembered. It's revealed when the noise settles, when the seeking softens, when the grasping lets go, and then in a single breath, you notice you're here, not the future version of you, not the image you've been crafting, but you unfiltered, unprotected, undistracted, and in that noticing, there's peace, not dramatic or overwhelming, but gentle, subtle, like the quiet hum of a still room. That peace has no reason, it just is. You may laugh, you may cry, you may simply sit there, doing nothing, and yet everything has changed. Because you're no longer looking outside for what lives within. The world hasn't changed, but your way of meeting it has. You still experience challenges, conflict, sadness, but you're not entangled in them. You feel them fully, but you are not defined by them. There is space now, space to respond instead of react. Space to breathe in the middle of tension, space to witness your own thoughts without believing everyone. And in that space, wisdom arises, not learned but remembered, not taught but revealed. You begin to live more simply, not out of asceticism, but because you no longer crave what doesn't serve your soul. You start to listen, not just to others, but to life itself. You see the patterns more clearly, the repeating cycles, the karmic loops, the unconscious habits, and from awareness you begin to choose differently, not because you're trying to be good, but because you're tired of being asleep. The old stories fall away, the identity you clung to begins to feel too tight, like clothes you've outgrown. You start shedding, not forcefully, but naturally, like trees letting go of leaves in autumn. There's a quiet joy in that letting go, a sense of relief, of remembering you never had to hold on so tightly. And in that freedom, you notice others differently. You see the masks they wear, but you also see beneath them. You recognize their pain, their searching, their beauty, not from judgment, but from resonance. Because you've seen yourself, and in seeing yourself clearly, you see everyone more clearly. The walls between you and the world begin to thin. You stop feeling so separate. Compassion blooms, not as an effort, but as a result of seeing truly. You no longer need to defend yourself as much. You don't take things as personally. You understand that most people are speaking from their wounds, not their truth. And so you meet them there, not to fix, not to save, but to love. To be the space where they can be seen, even if just for a moment, even if they never notice. Because that's the gift of presence. It asks for nothing. It doesn't need to be recognized, appreciated, or returned. It is its own reward. And from that place, life becomes sacred again, not in some grand mystical sense, but in the ordinary. A cup of tea becomes sacred, a walk down the street, a conversation, a sunset, the sound of rain, because you are in them now, not thinking about life, but living it, fully immersed, awake, engaged. Even washing dishes becomes an act of meditation, not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're simply present. And in present, everything glows a little brighter. You begin to trust life more, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's hard, because you've come to see that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. Each experience, each moment, each encounter is part of your unfolding, and you meet it all with curiosity, with surrender, with an open heart. You're no longer trying to control every outcome. You're dancing with what is, and that dance is messy, beautiful, painful, sacred, but above all it's real, and that's what you came here for. It becomes clear that the journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about remembering who you already are, stripping away the layers of conditioning, the inherited beliefs, the fears that were never yours to begin with. And that remembering, there's a kind of peace that settles into your bones, a quiet knowing that nothing outside you can provide what you've always carried within. No teacher, no philosophy, no practice can replace the simplicity of your own direct experience. They can point the way, they can guide, but the presence, the aliveness that's yours, always has been. And when you truly see this, you stop trying so hard, not because you've given up, but because you've woken up from the illusion that you were ever lacking, that you had to hustle to be worthy, that you had to chase peace instead of rest in it. You begin to move through life with less resistance, not because everything becomes easy, but because you stop fighting what is. You flow, you listen, you respond, and when suffering arises, as it will, you meet it with tenderness. You no longer fear your own darkness, because you've sat with it, you've held it, you've seen the light hidden inside it. You trust your path now, not because but because you know it's yours, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. There's no right pace, no fixed timeline, no ultimate destination, only this mine, and your honest response to it. You stop needing to be understood. You stop explaining your choices to those who can't hear you, not out of defensiveness, but out of peace. You've realized that true understanding begins within, and if you've found that, you're already home. Your presence becomes the message, not your word, not your ideas, your being. People may not know what's different about you, but they'll feel it. A calmness, a groundedness, a sense of safety that has nothing to do with control and everything to do with awareness. And sometimes that's all someone needs, to be in the presence of someone who isn't trying to fix them, advise them or change them, but someone who is simply there, fully, unwavering. This is the gift you now carry, not because you've mastered life, but because you've softened to it. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're willing to listen, to yourself, to others, to life, and you begin to see the divine in places you once overlooked, not just in temples or books, but in laughter, in grief, in silence, in mistakes, and beginnings and endings. Everything becomes sacred when you are present with it. Every moment becomes a doorway back to yourself, back to this still, spacious awareness that was never missing, just unnoticed. So you live now with a different rhythm, not rushing, not pushing, but attuning, letting each moment show you what it wants to reveal. You speak when it's true, you rest when you're tired, you act when it's aligned, not because you should, but because it's time. And this is how presence becomes not just a practice, but a way of life, a quiet revolution, a return to wholeness. Even when the mind wanders, even when you forget, something in you remembers the way back. And the more you return, the easier it gets. Like a well-worn path in the forest, the trail becomes familiar, the silence more welcoming. And this remembrance begins to guide you through the ever-changing seasons of your life, through love and loss, through creation and destruction, through doubt and clarity, always returning to presence, to now, to the space where life is actually happening. You may never have the language to explain it. You may not have the perfect story to tell, but you'll know it by its peace. You'll know it by its stillness. You'll know it by its truth. And you'll carry it with you, not as a performance, but as a quiet inner flame, steady, soft, real. This is the heart of presence. And you are living from it, not because you've arrived, but because you finally stopped running. And in that stopping you discovered you were always home. Throughout history, humanity has searched for the meaning of life, not just in temples or sacred texts, but in the quiet ache of the heart, in the stillness between breaths, in the questions that wake us at night and won't let go. We look outward first. We look to gods and systems and philosophies to hand us the answers. But slowly, if we listen closely, something begins to turn inward. We begin to sense that the truth we seek has been waiting within us all along. All the teachings, all the practices, they were never the destination. They were signs on the road. They were invitations to remember. And what we're remembering now is not just who we are, but what this world is, what this entire dream of existence is made of. It's not random. It's not cold. It's not meaningless. There is a pattern, a harmony, a rhythm. From the movement of galaxies to the unfolding of a single leaf, there is an intelligence that underlies it all. Some call it God, some call it Source, some call it the field, the universe, the Tao. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that you feel it, not as an idea, but as a living presence. A presence that breathes you, moves you, dreams you into being. This hour is not about another teaching. It's about dropping beneath all teachings. It's about pointing not to concept but to reality itself. Not reality as we've been taught, but reality as it actually is. Right here, right now, closer than your thoughts, more intimate than your breath. Let everything else fall away for a moment. Let go of your roles. Let go of your plans. Let go of even trying to understand. And just notice, you are aware. You are aware that you are listening. You are aware of the sounds, the silence between the sounds. You are aware of the space in which everything is arising. That awareness, pure, silent, still, that is the foundation of everything. It was there before your first memory. It will remain after your last breath. It doesn't come and go. Thoughts come and go. Feelings come and go. Experiences come and go. But awareness remains. It is the untouched witness. It is not bound by your name, your history or personality. It is not male or female, not young or old, not happy or sad. It is simply aware, and this awareness is not yours personally. You do not own it. You are it. You are it. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. Not that you have a soul, but that you are soul. Not that you observe awareness, but that awareness is observing itself through you. And in this realization, something subtle shifts. You stop clinging to the story and I'm winning. You stop needing everything to be figured out. You relax. You return. You open. There is a stillness at the center of your being that no chaos can disturb. There is a peace so deep, it can hold any storm. And it is already here, not in some future crowning, not at the end of some spiritual path, but now. And when you truly begin to sense this, even faintly, even for a moment, it changes the way you live. You stop chasing wholeness because you realize you've never been broken. You stop striving for enlightenment because the light has always been shining. You stop fighting with reality and begin to dance with it. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you no longer believe your thoughts about it. You begin to trust direct experience more than mental commentary. You learn to rest in not knowing, and in that rest, truth reveals itself, not as something to grasp, but as something to be. This awareness that witnesses all things does not judge what it sees. It does not label one moment as better than another. It does not resist pain or cling to pleasure. It simply allows everything to arise and pass in its own time. A thought appears, awareness holds it. A feeling surfaces, awareness makes room for it. A sensation pulses through the body, awareness says yes to it all. This is the nature of the ground you walk upon internally. It is unshakable because it has no preference. It welcomes joy and sorrow with the same openness. It watches the dance of opposites without needing to interfere. And this is not passivity. It's the deepest kind of intelligence. An intelligence that knows when to act, when to rest, when to speak, when to remain silent. It doesn't come from thinking. It comes from listening. Listening not just with your ears, but with your whole being. You begin to notice this intelligence in small ways. A quiet knowing in your chest that says not this, or yes, now. A pull towards something you don't fully understand, but trust anyway. A stillness that wraps around you in the middle of chaos and reminds you to breathe. This is not something you have to create. It's something you uncover. It's always been there, but our lives are often too loud for us to hear it. Silence becomes sacred, not just outer silence but inner stillness, the quiet beneath the noise of the mind. At first, this silence may seem empty. It may feel like nothing is happening, but stay with it. Remain present, and it begins to reveal its richness. You begin to hear the hum of existence itself, the subtle vibration behind all form, the deep pulse that connects you to everything that lives, and you realize you've never been separate. Not from the stars, not from the trees, not from the stranger passing you on the street. There is only one of us here, one awareness looking through countless eyes, one breath moving through countless forms. This doesn't erase your uniqueness, it makes it sacred. Your form, your story, your path, they are the way life chose to express itself as you. And when you embrace this, a new kind of freedom arises. You no longer have to become someone else. You simply become deeply yourself. Not the self that was shaped by fear or conformity, but the self that was written into the fabric of your being from the beginning. The authentic self is not something you create. It's something you uncover when you stop pretending, when you let go of masks, when you drop the need to perform. And in this space, life becomes simpler, not necessarily easier, but clearer. You begin to feel what is true in your body, not just in your thoughts. You move towards what nourishes you and away from what depletes you. You begin to trust your direct experience over inherited beliefs. You begin to see that what's real cannot be defined by words alone. It can only be known in presence, in the felt sense of this moment, in the aliveness of now. And so life becomes a practice of returning, not just once, but over and over. Each time you forget, you come back. Each time you get caught in thought, you notice. Each time you tense, you soften, not as a discipline of control, but as an act of love. You begin to walk with more reverence, more curiosity, more humility, because you're not pretending to know anymore. You're allowing life to teach you directly, through joy, through uncertainty. This is the deeper intelligence at work, not separate from you, but moving as you. Not something you control, but something you align with. And the more you trust, the less you need certainty, because something deeper than the mind is guiding now, something timeless, something real. There comes a moment when you no longer seek answers with the same urgency, not because the questions have disappeared, but because you're no longer afraid of not knowing. You begin to live in the mystery, not as a problem to be solved, but as a presence to be felt. The mystery is not out there. It's here, in the breath, in the body, in the moment. In the pause before a thought arises. In the heartbeat you did not command. in the space between your words. This shift is not dramatic. It doesn't always come with lightning or visions. Often it's quiet. So quiet you might miss it if you're not paying attention. A soft loosening of the grip, a gentle surrender to what is, not because you've given up, but because you've remembered the peace that lives in surrender. You begin to stop resisting your experience, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts, not because the pain is enjoyable, but because fighting it only deepens the suffering. And there is another way, a way that says yes, this too, yes to the ache, yes to the fear, yes to the not knowing. This doesn't mean passive acceptance. It means being fully present with what is, seeing clearly without adding the story. Pain is pain, but this shouldn't be happening, is suffering layered on top. Fear is fear, but something is wrong with me is resistance wearing a mask. And when you see this, something softens. You meet your experience as it is, and in doing so you give it permission to move. Everything wants to move. Emotions, sensations, thoughts, they are all energy in motion. It's only when we clamp down, judge, or avoid that they get stuck. But presence melts the stuckness. Compassion unfreezes what's frozen. Awareness untangles the knots. So when sadness comes, you let it weep. When anger arises, you give it space to burn clean. When joy bubbles up, you let it overflow. You become the space for it all. Not the content, but the container. Not the waves, but the ocean. And in this recognition, there is freedom, not the kind sold in advertisements or achieved through effort, but the quiet freedom of being what you already are. This is not a goal to reach. It's a homecoming. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You rest. And at rest, life meets you differently. Not as an adversary, but as a dance partner. Not as something to control, but as something to move with. You notice the small moments more. The way the light touches a wall. The way your breath is on the inhale. The way your hand rests on your chest when you're moved. You become more alive to the ordinary. And in doing so, you realize it was never ordinary. Life has always been miraculous. We were just too busy to notice. And now something in you is slowing down. Not in laziness, but in reverence. You begin to bow to life, not out of fear, but out of awe, because you've seen the sacred peeking through the mundane. You've tasted the eternal in a single breath, and that changes everything. Even the way you relate to others begins to shift. You start to see beyond their behavior. You begin to feel the essence behind their words, not just what they say, but what they truly mean. You listen more deeply, not with the mind ready to respond, but with the heart open to receive. You're no longer just hearing sound, you're feeling presence. And people can sense that, even if they don't know why they feel so seen around you. You're no longer trying to fix people, because you no longer believe they're broken. You see that beneath the layers of pain, confusion, and defense, there is light, just like in you. So you meet people in their humanity, in their rawness, in their contradictions, and you meet them with compassion instead of judgment. That compassion doesn't mean tolerating harm or allowing dysfunction. It simply means recognizing that we're all trying to find our way, that behind every closed heart is a story of pain. Behind every outburst is a cry for connection. You begin to offer the space you've created inside yourself, and in doing so, you become a refuge, not by trying to be someone else, but by being fully who you are. Someone rooted, someone open, someone real. And this has ripple effects. You don't even have to speak of your spiritual journey. Your presence becomes the teaching. Your calm becomes contagious. Your kindness becomes a mirror for others to remember their own. This is not about being perfect. You'll still have days of doubt, moments of contraction, times when the mind pulls you back into its noise. But now you recognize it faster. You see the pattern without becoming it, and you return not with shame but with grace. This is what real integration looks like. Not transcending the human experience, but embracing it more fully, bringing light into the shadow, and love into the places that once held fear. You stop chasing peak experiences. You stop needing constant signs or revelations. You realize the sacred is here in the dishes, the traffic, the quiet evenings. And in recognizing this, you fall in love with being alive in a new way. Even grief takes on a new texture. It still aches, but it's no longer something to escape. It becomes a doorway into tenderness, a reminder of how deeply you've loved, a teacher that humbles you and deepens your presence. Even fear becomes something you hold rather than fight. You feel it arise in the body, but instead of pushing it down, you breathe into it. You say, I see, you're welcome here too. And often just being seen is all fear needs to begin dissolving. In this way, your inner world becomes more spacious, more forgiving, more honest, and from this inner transformation, your outer life may begin to shift too. Not always in dramatic ways, but in small, meaningful ones. You may change how you spend your time, who you spend it with, what you say yes to, and what you gently begin to release. These changes don't come from pressure, they come from alignment, from living closer to your truth. And the more you live from that truth, the more ease you feel. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you stop resisting your path. You walk it with your eyes open, your chest soft, your breath deep. This is the unfolding, not a straight line but a spiral, not a destination but a deepening. And the deeper you go, the more you remember what you've always known, that you are not separate from life, you are life. You begin to recognize how much of your life was spent trying to become someone better, smarter, more worthy, more enlightened. But now, you feel something shift. You're no longer obsessed with becoming. You're more interested in being, not a passive being, but a vibrant, alive, curious being. The kind that feels life fully without trying to force it into shape. The kind that breathes deeply, even in uncertainty. You see how much of your suffering came from the belief that this moment wasn't enough, that you weren't enough, that something needed to change before peace could arrive. But now you're catching those thoughts in real time, and instead of chasing them down every rabbit hole, you pause, you soften, you remember, and in that remembering, peace shows up without effort. Not a loud peace, not the kind that demands recognition, but a quiet, steady kind, the kind that hums beneath everything, always there, if you're still enough to notice. You start to live more simply, not necessarily in things, but in attention. You give your full attention to the person in front of you, to the task in your hands, to the moment you're in, and that attention becomes sacred, because wherever your attention rests, your life is happening. And for the first time in a long time, you don't want to miss it. This awareness extends to your relationship with the natural world. You begin to feel the trees differently, not just as objects, but as beings. You notice the sky more often, the wind, the sound of birds, the way light plays across water. Nature stops being a background. It becomes a teacher, a mirror, a constant reminder that life knows how to, without trying, without stress. You see how trees don't rush their growth, how rivers don't argue with their curves, how the moon shows up fully even when the sky is covered in clouds. There's wisdom there, not in words but in presence, not in ideas but in being. And when you align with that rhythm, your own life begins to feel more natural, less forced, less strained. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop comparing your path to others. You start trusting your own timing. And in that trust, you find a deep relief, because now you're no longer living according to someone else's blueprint. You're living according to your soul's rhythm, and that rhythm may not make sense to others. It may be slower, softer, more intuitive, but it will be true. And truth has a frequency that resonates without explanation. You begin to see your own emotions as part of nature too. They rise and fall like weather. They move through you like tides. And you don't resist them so much. You let them come, you let them go, like watching clouds pass across the open sky. No feeling is final, no state is permanent. Everything is in motion, and that too is part of the beauty. You stop needing to hold on so tightly, because now you trust in the flow, you trust in the intelligence of what's moving you, and that trust more than anything frees you. The more you trust, the more life begins to feel like a conversation, not a one-sided monologue where you plead or push, but a subtle, intimate exchange between you and existence. You move and life responds. You pause and life breathes with you. You ask, not always with words, and answers arrive, not always in form but in feeling. You begin to recognize the difference between noise and signal. The mind may scream with urgency, but truth often whispers. And when you get quiet enough, you can hear that whisper. It It comes from a place beneath the surface, a place that doesn't argue, it just knows. You follow it like a thread, not with force, but with reverence, like tracing your way back to something you've never fully left. In time, you realize that this thread, this knowing, is always guiding you, not toward fame or status or guarantees, but toward wholeness, to freedom, toward your own sacred unfolding. And you begin to see how even the detours were part of the path, how the heartbreak softened you, how the confusion made you question deeper, how the emptiness prepared you to receive. Nothing was wasted, not a single moment, not a single tear, not a single dark night when you thought you'd never find your way back. It was all part of the initiation, not to make you more, but to reveal what's always there, that peace you were seeking in books, in teachers, in faraway places. It lives right here in the stillness beneath your thoughts. That love you long for, it's been pulsing in your chest since the day you were born. That sense of home, it's not a location, it's a remembering of what you are, of what everything is. And once that remembering begins, it changes everything, not always on the surface but from the inside out, like spring arriving in the roots before the blossom shows. This is what the mystics spoke of, not in riddles, but in truth so simple they go unnoticed. To be still, to be aware, to be present, is to return. You may still have preferences, still have dreams, still move in the world with intention. But now, you're not lost in the outcome, you're anchored in the unfolding. You begin to laugh more easily, not because life is always funny, but because you're less burdened. You cry more freely, not because you're broken, but because you're open. You speak more honestly, not because you're right, but because you're real. And others start to notice, not in dramatic ways, but in quiet moments. They feel safer around you. They soften in your presence, because you've made peace with yourself, and that peace ripples outward. You've stopped running from silence. Now you rest inside it, like a familiar room, like a sacred cave. And in that silence, the sacred reveals itself, not as something separate, but as everything. It was never far, it was never missing, only covered by layers of thought, identity. But now you see through those layers, not with disdain but with love, because even the veils were part of the dance, even the forgetting had its role. There is a quiet beauty in not needing to be anyone special, in letting go of the performance, in dropping the mask, even when no one is watching. Because that's when the truth arrives, when there is no audience to impress, when the lights are dim and it's just you, with yourself. And in that moment, you see it. You were never broken. You were never missing anything. There was just too much noise to hear your own essence. Now the noise has softened, not gone completely, because you're still human, but quieter, like background static that no longer pulls your attention. You walk through your life with a little more presence, noticing things you never used to see. The way light dances on a countertop, the subtle shift in someone's tone, the feeling of air brushing against your skin. You don't rush through as much anymore. There's a spaciousness in your actions, a grace that isn't put on, it simply flows, because you've aligned with something deeper than thought. You've begun to live from the stillness beneath the surface, and the world feels different from there. Not because it changed, but because you're seeing from the inside out. Even your relationship with discomfort evolves. Instead of avoiding pain, you meet it. Instead of distracting yourself, you sit with it. Not to wallow, but to listen. Because sometimes pain isn't there to harm, it's there to teach, to soften, to awaken something long buried. And now you're not afraid of what arises. You've learned that everything passes through, that nothing stays. Not joy, not sorrow, not confusion. They are visitors. You are the space, the awareness that receives, holds, and releases. This doesn't make life perfect, but it makes it real. And in that reality, there's beauty, there's freedom, there's peace. Not because everything goes your way, but because you're no longer resisting what is. You smile more, not out of obligation, but from a place of quiet gratitude. Gratitude, not just for the highs, but for the texture of life itself. The whole tapestry, light and dark, smooth and rough. It all belongs, and you belong, without needing to prove, strive, or pretend. You realize now this is the miracle. Not some grand event, not a sudden transformation, but this moment, this breath, this awareness. The miracle is that you're here, alive, conscious, able to witness your own unfolding, and that witnessing, calm, gentle, present, is the most sacred thing of all. You don't need to chase the divine. You need only slow down enough to see that it's already here, in you, around you, as you. And when you know this, not as an idea, but as a felt truth, your life becomes prayer, not something you do, but something you are. You wake up each day, not with urgency, but with presence. There's no longer a frantic need to prove or become, just a quiet reverence for what is, for the chance to be. Even the simplest things feel sacred now. The warmth of tea in your hands, the sound of birds echoing through morning light, the silence between thoughts, each becomes a doorway into the eternal. You don't need to escape your life to find the divine. You just need to be with it, fully, softly, without judgment. You've realized the truth was never hidden, only overlooked, because it's so close, so ordinary, so ever-present, that the mind couldn't recognize it. But now, with quieter eyes, you see that every tree bows in prayer, that every gust of wind carries wisdom, that every breath is an arrival, and you begin to live like that, aware that each act, no matter how small, is an offering. Washing dishes becomes meditation, walking becomes communion, speaking becomes vibration. You carry stillness into movement, silence into sound, and the world in turn reflects it back to you. People sense the peace in you, not because you preach, but because you embody. You become a reminder, a reflection, not better than anyone, just deeply rooted, deeply here, and when challenges come, as they still do, you no longer collapse. You don't fight the river, you float, you breathe, you trust, because now you know the current is sacred, that even when it pulls you into shadows is still love, love wearing the mask of loss, of change, of surrender, and you surrender more easily now, not out of weakness, but wisdom, knowing that what falls away was never truly yours, and what remains was never truly separate. This is what the great mystics meant, not doctrines, not dogmas, but presence, a return to the now, a return to the heart, a return to being. You no longer seek truth, as if it's somewhere else. You let it reveal itself in each moment, like sunlight filtering through clouds, unforced, effortless, real. And in that reality, find yourself again and again, not as a fixed idea, but as an unfolding mystery, both timeless and fleeting, both vast and intimate. You don't need to understand it all. You just need to be with it, to live with open hand and a soft gaze, to walk gently on this earth, knowing it is sacred ground. And when the final breath comes, whenever it may arrive, you will not fear it, because you've already died to illusion. And what remains is truth. What remains is love. What remains is the eternal whisper of the divine, singing itself through you.